supreme law. The Constitution that it swallows, along with the treaties made under the U.S., are the highest laws of the land. Judges are bound, and so are the states, regardless of any laws to the contrary. Number 6, public officials' authority. People working in the public roles have only limited powers given to us by the people. They must perform their duties as outlined by law, and they must swear and sign an oath to do so faithfully. Okay, number 7, only courts that follow the Constitution properly are allowed to handle disputes involving the people. So in the United States Constitution, this is Article 3, Section 2. These courts must ensure fair process, including trial by jurors as required by the Constitution. Is Trump getting a fair shake? Are some of the people lagging behind waking up? Yes. Normally, if people tell someone you did time, they'll be like, well, you had to do something wrong. And so people are finding out that there's a lot of railroading going on a long time. I'll share my experience where they tried to throw me in jail up in Idaho in a second as soon as we get through this. Number 8, our fundamental freedoms. The Constitution guarantees our freedom and protects us from slavery, tyranny, and oppression by any misuse of laws. Number 9, my rights are protected. No one can trick or force me to give up my rights. If someone tries to infringe upon my rights, whether they're acting as an individual on behalf of an organization or a government, they're committing a crime and should be punished. So that's how you enforce your rights, because they were not given by these people and they can't take it away. So me getting arrested. Okay, so I'm traveling with my mentor, Fred Kelly Grant, a common friend of Anthony's and mine. And Fred was in Idaho, and he was narcolepsy a little bit. So we had a doctor's note, and it was well documented that he shouldn't be driving. Okay. So here I am. He asked me to drive him to a roundtable lawyers meeting over there in Twin Falls. And previously to that, somebody called me over there. They had their 5-year-old handicapped child raped. Was there children in here right now? Okay. So anyways, this 5-year-old girl got raped, and by these Muslim immigrants that they were importing over there at Chimani Yogurt Factory over there at up in Twin Falls. So anyways, alleged raped, but it was on video. And so the lady whose child got raped, she was telling me about everything. And I'm like, well, what happened? They're like, well, they're not releasing the medical records. Can you imagine being a parent and they're the local prosecutor? He would not give them the medical report because Obama was bringing in a bunch of people from Arab nations, and these people that's their culture, I guess, or that's under Sharia law or whatever. So these teenagers were out the next day. And I'm talking to the mom, I'm like, well, where's your daughter at? Well, she's hiding in the closet. She has 6 pairs of underwear on, and I can't get her out. Because they were playing on the monkey bars right outside their window. These are the type of scumbags that we need to take out of office and remove out of office. If you're an owner of a restaurant and the waiter and waitresses are stabbing people with a fork, we're not going to let this abusive stuff go on. We're going to fire these people. These people are our public servants. We need to introduce them to their bosses, which is us. So I had a conversation with the prosecutor, and I said, hey, Grant, I said, between me, you, and the Lord, we all know you're corrupt. He didn't like that. So I'm driving through his town. I get pulled over. My officer's so scary. So anyways, I get a ticket. I didn't think nothing of it. So I called down there, and I'm like, hey, I'm living 3 hours away. What do you need? I didn't want to fight. It's just too far away to fight. And he informed me that he's pressing criminal charges against me. I'm like, really? So yeah, it's a crime. Failure to purchase an Idaho driver's license. That's all like an administrative process. Did I wreck into any stop signs or injure anybody? No. There was no injured party. I was operating under the laws of necessity driving somebody, traveling with somebody else who was unable to drive, who probably would have wrecked. So that's the law of necessity, is when you can break a law as long as you're doing a good thing. But it's not even a law, it's a code. So they decide that they're going to prosecute me with up to 6 months in jail, because I'm with the American Common Law Academy and they don't like what we were doing over there, okay? So they're dragging me through litigation, and I filed my status affidavit on the record, which is, I'll leave it up here if anybody wants to look at it. I'll put it on the website. It's what I explained to you, my status. I did it in layman's term, but it's all the straight Constitution, Declaration of Independence, my red thumbprint, notary, filed at the county recorder's office. And when you file an affidavit in the court, it's facts on the record, unless somebody can rebut it and write another affidavit that said it's untrue. So this affidavit is unrebuttable. So I went into the court with Judge Campbell and I says, unless the prosecutor can rebut my affidavit of status, you don't even have jurisdiction to hear the case, because we're in an Article 1 court. And as one of we the people, I require an Article 3 judge, according to the Constitution. But these Article 1 courts, like Tony was showing you, they're administrative courts. And these judges are pretty much clerks, aren't they? Or should we call the clerks tellers and the judges bankers? I don't know. Anyways. So they're going to take me to trial. And I called them up, and they says, well, we want to negotiate with you because you're not an attorney. Sounds like prejudice to me. I says, well, I'm going to pepper you with paper. And so I think I did about 6 or 7 motions. And so the first prosecutor that they had on, they figured, well, this guy's, he's a pro se, he's not an attorney. Mopped the floor with her. They brought another one down for the next, I kept on filing motions, and I went through 3 prosecutors. And so all of a sudden, I'm bringing my legislator into these hearings now. I'm like, watch how corrupt this is. Come down here. And so I can't discuss our discussion with the legislature, but she had some inside information that I can't share. But she was shocked at what was going on. So they're taking me to jury trial. If you lost 2 days worth of work because somebody was being tried for not carrying a license, then they filed a protective motion. They tried, it's called a motion in limine, where the judge says, Tony, if you bring up the Constitution or these certain arguments, I'm going to find you with contempt and we're going to arrest you. Kind of probably like Trump's deal, like, we're going to take all the prosecution's evidence, but you're not allowed to create your own defense, right? So I'm like, this is a carnival, this is a circus, I'm going to dress up for the show. So my legislator, who later became a citizen, she did some good work. She got the open carry law in Idaho reduced from 21 to 18. Is that good? She said if our boys can go overseas, carry guns, at 18, they can carry guns here. So she got it reduced, working together with the Second Amendment Alliance up there in Idaho. Great people. And so she shows up for the hearing. And I come walking in, and I'm wearing a long sleeve fluorescent purple shirt with my clerical collar with the white marshmallow. And I got one of those big family Bibles, right? Like the ones, the big ones like that. So I'm come walking in, and Christy looks at me and goes, Tony, I was getting railroaded like Trump. I'm like, I might as well enjoy myself. You know what I mean? I'll just let the jury throw the father in jail, right? So before I did that, I motioned, I put it to the court. I'm like, hey, no, the prosecutor objected. Mr. Pellegrino, his ordination papers are on the docket here. And I object to his ordination papers being on the record. And then Judge Campbell's like, Mr. Pellegrino, why is your ordination papers on the record? I says, well, is Officer Stokes Berry going to wear her uniform that she serves her community? Yeah, she'll probably be in uniform. I says, well, I'm going to wear my uniform. This was the motion hearing before I came in. So I dressed up in my clerical collar because I'm ordained, and it's my right to do so. And a jury convicted me of failing to purchase a driver's license, which is 6 months in jail. So I'm like, okay. What I was really worried about more than anything was having to eat their food and drink their water. Actually, that terrified me more than anything. So I was under a lot of stress. And true story, I'm in the church service shortly after that, And a friend of mine, John Digglegon, he's like, hey, can you play drums on Bleeding Worship? I'm like, fine. So we went over this church service. I didn't know any of these people. And one of the ladies stood up and says, you, sir, the drummer, can I speak to you? She wanted to give me a word. I said, yeah. She goes, that scripture in the book of Kings where the one king was being threatened by another king, and the word of the Lord was him to put on all his paperwork before God and ask God to judge between the two matters. And the scripture said that God went and put a hook in this guy's jaw, took him away from threatening and encroaching upon Israel at the time. And so that was her word to me. Put your paperwork out before God. I'm like, okay, God. These motions, these people violating my rights, I want you to judge this thing. So then I go back into court, and the state of Idaho versus Anthony Pellegrino. What does the state say? The first thing out of the prosecutor's mouth is, Your Honor, we just talked about this 5 minutes ago. I'm like, it's called ex parte communication. The judge can't talk to one party without the other party present, or his attorney, right, or his lawyer. So, anyways, I'm like, the judge knows that so he kind of went like this. I'm kind of like that. And then the judge goes, or the prosecutor finally goes, well, Your Honor, when we convicted Mr. Pellegrino 10 days ago, a law was enacted right before the sentencing here a couple days ago that reduced his crime to civil penalty instead of criminal. So I was released from all criminal charges. Isn't that a cool story? So I wasn't running from it, but that's a true story. But they were charging me, trying to throw me in jail without no injured party. And it's like Trump or whatever. We're getting railroaded in these administrative courts. And I was going through a bunch of problems, selling my house up out in Idaho and stuff. And so I didn't have time to sue the judge or the prosecutor in that. But anyways, so that's what goes on. And one of the bases is they never rebutted my affidavit. And that's why what we're going to do, we're going to learn how to write affidavits. Okay. So back at the back side of your folder on the right-hand side, excuse me, what is an affidavit? It's an out-of-court sworn statement of truth under penalty of perjury, okay? And in commerce, an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth on the record. This is the one with the blue strip on it. Does everybody have it? So what you do is you file this in court, but what you want to do is you write your statement up and you have it notarized. So number one, you write the affidavit, you write your full name and address on the top. And so you're the affiant. And then you date it, and then you put the subject, like, traveling with Fred Kelly Grant on highway, whatever it was. And I put my affidavit on the record too. Okay, so you title your affidavit in bold, large font, and then you define the wrongdoings that are in your affidavit. So what you want to do is it's a statement of truth. And so you start out with number one, would be like, I was driving down Highway 4, going to the speed limit, and let's say a deer jumped out, and I avoided the deer, and I swerved around there at mile marker, whatever, and then all of a sudden I saw lights, police lights, and, so it'd be like, number one, I was driving down Highway 4, and a deer jumped out, and I had to swerve and avoid the deer, number one. Number two, I looked in my rearview mirror, and an officer was pulling me over, okay? Number three, I pulled over, and the officer says, why did I cross the double yellow line? And I told the officer that a deer jumped out. Number four, the officer said that he didn't see a deer, he was behind me. Number five, so what you're doing is you're making statements. This is a made-up story, but anyways, so it's an affidavit of truth. And if you had a witness with you, they would write an affidavit too. So these are so you number your paragraphs. Okay, number five, explain the W's. That's the who, what, where, and when. Those are the four corners doctrine. So, who was with you, what happened, where were you, and when did it happen? Okay, number six, do not presume why. Why would be like secondhand knowledge, that would be conjecture. I can't say in my affidavit, well, the officer was low on his, quotas for tickets, and that's why he pulled me up. That's why. You can't do a why in an affidavit unless you're speaking about yourself. Well, the reason why I searched Word was because there was a deer. You see all that line? And you can't use secondhand information. Well, so-and-so told me that such and such happened. That's secondhand knowledge. The court won't accept that as in your affidavit. Okay, so do not add secondhand information because it is considered number 7. And number 8, tell the whole story in such a way that those who read it will understand every detail within the person reading. So when you're writing your affidavit, and I had to learn this too, in your mind, you're revisiting whatever situation or whatever the event that was happening. And in your mind, there's details and it makes sense to you. What you need to do is find someone who knows nothing about it, hand them the affidavit, and say, okay, do you understand that? They'll start asking you questions. You'll be like, oh, I forgot to put that in there. You know what I mean? I forgot to do that. And that's how you'll adjust your affidavit. So that's quick how to write an affidavit here in 8 steps. I have a sample. I don't have a sample affidavit in there, but it'll be up on the website. Okay, lawful notification letters. Before I read that, this is out of Idaho Constitution. I read the similar one in California, but I didn't bring it with me. But this is Idaho, formation of public policy. It says the people of the state of Idaho, notice the people, not the persons, not the citizens, in creating the instruments of government that serve them, do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies so created. Therefore, the legislature finds and declares that it is the policy of this state that formation of public policy is public business and shall not be conducted in secret. We have a problem here in Tamale County. Apparently, I'm not going to use their name, but and because of time things up, somebody here basically went up and spoke, and they cut it off the recording and hindered. You know what I mean? It hindered the stuff. You cannot violate certain rights when you're in public. So if you have to put them on notice, if they violate your rights, let's say they don't use at the public meeting, you have a right to do so. It's called a lawful notification letter. So that's the other page. It's in the back right-hand side. Number 1, lawful notification letter. It is lawful to put on notice the parties of interest that have caused injury, harm, and loss. So that's due process. So federal courts call that fair notice. So if you're going to sue somebody, you have to let them know you are being sued. Take notice. Okay. B, provide the wrongdoer with due process to respond and rectify the matter. I always finish up my lawful notification letter. To avoid litigation and adjudication in this matter, I'm open for a short window of negotiation. Okay, that's creating a solution to your problem. B, okay, you have to articulate your facts, whatever the offense was. C, that allows the wrongdoer to respond. Okay, they either respond, and when they don't respond, that's called tacit agreement. They rebut. If they don't rebut it, they will acquiesce. Time box the wrongdoer for a response. Action steps. Follow up with a courtesy notice. So what you do is I send it certified mail. I have my lawful notification letter notarized. Send it certified mail. And as soon as they sign that, when they get it, there'll be a date on it. They'll get a green receipt back. And I always time box them into 14 days to respond. If they don't respond, then they're in agreement. Like if someone stole your credit card, right? Stole your identity and ran up a bunch of bills, and you got the bill in the mail, that's presumption that you spent the money. So you can't remain silent and tacitly agree to somebody else stealing your identity. You have to address the situation. So if they don't answer, these public officials don't answer your lawful notification letters, then they're tacitly agreed. Do not make the mistake in asking them questions. You make statements. I was at the public meeting, you would not speak, or I spoke and you cut it out of the recording to where the rest of the people didn't get a chance to hear that, or whatever your issue is with your local government. Is there one in there in your packet for a Second Amendment violations? I think it's in the packet. Jenny, can I have that a packet? I'm missing that. Lawful notification letter. But anyways, here it is here. Sorry.
I already have one.
So here is a lawful notification letter, Second Amendment recovery of unlawfully seized guns. So I'm going to go through the lawful notification letter, and I'm going to read the letter itself. Okay, so where are we at? Okay, then you file the lawsuit, serve the summons, and then there's a link on how to write the lawful notification letter on YouTube, which is very, very user-friendly. Okay, so here we are. This is the letter itself. Z. Paul Revere, on Liberty Lane in Modesto, non-commercial site. You see how the zip code is in brackets? Remember David had mentioned that? That means that you're not a resident. That means you're one of the people. Attention, Ron Bonta, Attorney General of California, and Special Agent I'm in Trouble of California Department of Justice. This is a lawful notification letter that you are corresponding with a U.S. citizen. Does it say that? It says you are corresponding with one of the people. The reason why I keep on doing this is I'm not being sarcastic. I want you to get the idea that you stop using their language. Okay? Like when Tony showed the video. They were saying, it's a democracy, it's a democracy. Trump's a danger to democracy. You better believe it. He wants to restore the republic. That's what I believe. Anyways, he's not perfect, but he seems to be the CEO for the corporation, right? Seems to be the man. I will be monitoring and maintaining a record of your response to this correspondence or the lack thereof. In my lawful right to keep and bear arms, you notice I didn't use the word firearms. You don't use their language. Keep and bear arms, a California department agent going by the name of I'm in Trouble, acting under color of law by unlawfully seizing my arms, guns, to suppress and deprive the secured right on February 6th. This is an infringement upon my rights, and any further infringements, including retaliation, will be redressed pursuant to 42 section 1983. That's the federal civil rights lawsuit. That's the one you only need two elements. Somebody acting under color of law and somebody violating your rights. Please respond to the following items. So we're going to make accusations. We're not going to ask questions. So number one, you have a sworn and solemn oath to the California State Constitution as well as the federal Constitution. Period. Statement. Now we ask the question if they want to rebut it. Is this correct, yes or no? Number two, there is no law superseding a government actor's ability to circumvent the mandatory language in the Second Amendment. Period. I'm making a statement. Is this correct, yes or no? Do you see where I'm going with this? Where there's no really answer or rebuttal that he can provide to this except for admitting guilt. So a lot of times they don't respond. So reading down, the seizure was initiated after I was put on a list prohibiting to keep and bear arms. Period. Is this correct? Yes or no? Number four, there was no fair notice given to me prior to being placed on this said list. Period. Is this correct? So what you're doing is before you sue I'm in trouble officer from the DOJ from California, you're giving him due process that he didn't give you if this is you in the letter. Because they never gave him, the individual fair notice. They just showed up at his door and it says, we're here to take your firearms. Anyways. Number five, you have a proper bond required by the state of California. Is this correct? Yes or no? Is Ty in here still? Anyways, Ty's uncovered some really good things about the bonds. All right. So, in a matter at hand, it is essential to consider that the recent precedent established by the United States Supreme Court in the case Bruno versus New York, this is a landmark ruling. A lot of times I don't do this, but this is so solid for our Second Amendment rights that I threw in case law, which you don't even have to put the section in, but I beat this one up because we're going to hammer this dude and get him removed from office and get this litigant some money. Okay, so I mentioned about Bruno versus New York underscores the fundamental importance of the Second Amendment, emphasizing that codes and statutory schemes cannot be employed to undermine the constitutional guaranteed right to bear arms. This decision reiterates the principle that an individual such as an American citizen in this matter poses no danger to their community, has an unequivocal right to keep and bear arms for self-defense. Flip it on the back side of it. Try to save paper here. Okay, given this legal backdrop, it is respectfully asserted that my name be immediately removed from the list that prohibits me from keeping or purchasing arms. This action is not only a matter of upholding the oath to protect constitutional rights, but it's also a duty to prevent potential deprivation of rights under color of law. Such deprivation could lead to legal proceedings, both against any responsible official in their official job capacity, potential in an individual's private capacity due to their involvement in the decision that resulted in the deprivation. So a lot of times when I'm being harassed, and I don't say this all the time, but when I was getting deplaned one time because of the mask situation, and actually I wasn't refusing it, but it's a long story, I don't want to go there. But when I pulled up to the gate, they told everybody to sit in their seat, and the officer came down and walked down the aisle, and he finally started screaming at me, "Get your luggage and get off the plane." So, the best thing about getting deplaned is, right, you get to get off first, not waiting. And after he was done yelling, I said, "Can I tell my side of the story?" And I told him what happened. I said, "So you detained me, yes or no?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, then I'm free to leave." I just walked away. But so basically, I gave him an opportunity to do the right thing. Okay, failure to return my guns could expose both the responsible official and their official job capacity. So this is my point. If that officer would have arrested me, and I told him the story, and I put him on notice, and he still arrested me anyways because he wanted to make points or whatever, now I could sue him in his personal capacity because the comment I made to him when he was screaming at me, "Get your luggage and get off get off the plane." I go, what is this concern? What law have I broken? And he says, "You think I'm here for no reason? Get your stuff and get off here. You got any more questions?" I says, "Yeah, how big is your house?" Want to make sure all my furniture fits in, right? Anyways, a little bit of sarcasm, but my point is that I could technically sue him in his personal capacity, and his house is up for grabs. We had a guy over there in New Township, it's a small town, when we drained the swamp over there, the guys over the local bar there crying in his beer. "Oh, I'm being sued for $750,000. Well, we sent you 4 letters that you were violating the rights of one of the citizens here, one of the people. 4 letters. And they just kept on doubling down and being more abusive. So you think I'm feeling sorry, you know what I mean? We gave this guy plenty of opportunity. And then he's crying because now his house is up for grabs. Anyways, so the last paragraph, failure to return my guns could expose both a responsible official in their official job capacity and their individual personal capacity to legal action stemming from this alleged deliberate indifference and deprivation of this fundamental right. It is therefore in the best interest of all parties involved to address this matter promptly within 14 days in accordance with the law. I will be monitoring and maintaining a record of your response to this correspondence or the lack thereof. For failure to respond to the aforementioned statements within 14 days would equate to tacit agreement. So tacit agreement is if you're not going to respond to it, then you have already agreed to it. And so then when you go to court, you can file sanctions against them from even arguing their point, because you could say, "I gave them fair notice to rebut it." And so, my lawful notification letters is facts on the record that they acquiesced in. Because if they would have answered it, guess what they would have to say? No, there's no law that supersedes the Second Amendment. There's a law that we can put you on a list without due process. So every one of those statements is kind of putting him over a barrel. He can't not answer, but if he does answer, then he's admitting to guilt. So that's an example of a lawful notification letter. Any Second Amendment people here? All right, we're like this. What time is it? Okay, I don't want to go into Tony's time. We got to hear him. Okay. What time is the next event? 2 o'clock. All right. So Bruner, New York Rifle and Pistol versus Bruner. One of the Supreme Court justices, Justice Thomas. You wonder why the left hates this guy. He came out and said basically the same restrictions apply to the Second Amendment now as they did in 1791 when the Bill of Rights was ratified. okay? Which means none. That's why it says shall not infringe. And so Bruner changed all the precedent for all the red flag laws. And so we just had another case here. It's Dewar, United States of America versus Dewar. And so this went to the Ninth Circuit here. So this is really important for California. Reversing the district court's judgment, because it was in the district level, the panel vacated Stephen Dewar's conviction for violating 18 U.S.C. 922, which makes it a crime for any person to possess, see where it says person to possess a firearm if he had not been convicted of an offense. You don't have this in your packet, so don't look for it, sorry. So who have not been, has been convicted of an offense punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year. The panel held that under New York State Rifle and Pistol versus Bruin, 597 U.S. 2022, one violates the Second Amendment as applied to Dewar, a non-violent offender. Applying Bruin's two-step text to the history of the framework panel concluded, number one. Now this is the court. Up above it said person and firearm. Now here it says Dewar's weapon, a handgun, is an arm, in quotes, within the meaning of the Second Amendment text. That Dewar's proposed course of conduct carrying a handgun publicly for self-defense falls within the Second Amendment's plain language, okay? And that Dewar is part of, quote unquote, the people. So now we're seeing the Supreme Court, like Roe versus Wade, we're seeing these big Second Amendment cases. We're seeing the proper language come from the Supreme Court, which is really encouraging. Okay, so they called him the people whom the Second Amendment protects because he is an American citizen. There it is. It didn't use the word U.S. citizen and person. So now the courts are ruling, they're recognizing the rights of the people because this guy had an attorney that probably wasn't trained by the bar. He had outside training. So that's an affidavit, and that's a lawful notification letters. We're going to put a bunch of these resources online on our website. And while I have 5 more minutes, do you need to prep for anything? Do you need to get your PowerPoint ready for the next presentation? No. Oh, you're going to do coordination? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Questions for public officials. So this is the whole thing. How about the greatest victory is not going to court, right? My brother-in-law, he went to go buy a weapon, a gun, okay? And when he went at the place, they said, you know what, you're on a list. So we sent a 1-page letter to the lieutenant over there in Pennsylvania State Police saying, please take me off the list. I'd appreciate it. It was real sweet. And we said, well, by the way, if you don't, you're violating your oath of office under the Second Amendment. We will sue you in federal court. We expect you to do the right thing. Thank you very much in advance. Guess what? 3 weeks later, he gets a letter back saying, you're off the list. Take this paper in with the number wherever you go. Give it to the place that sells the guns, and you'll be free to purchase that. So did that cost $5,000? And an attorney? That took me like 5 minutes to write the letter, and then we had to spend $10 for the certified mail. And 3 weeks, and all of a sudden. So those are the best scenarios. I don't like court. I'd rather just people do the right thing, right? But so when you encounter somebody, okay, be on full alert that every official that comes into contact with you has an agenda. It's either for good or for bad. Bad on bad. Start recording. Don't answer any questions. Rather, you ask the questions. Number 1, what is your name and official job title? Okay, that'd be a question you ask somebody. Number 2, are you in your official capacity at the moment? Did you ever see an off-duty police officer get out of their car and start on YouTube and start saying, hey, I'm off-duty? You know, everybody has the right to arrest someone under citizen's arrest, but they have to be committing a crime. And the definition of a crime is causing injury to somebody else. So, so you want to ask your official job capacity. Number 3, do you have an oath of office? Number 4, do you have a good faith surety bond? Number 5, are you required to uphold the Bill of Rights? Is that a trick question? Well, of course he is. But say it for the camera, it's not, right? 7, am I required or compelled by any law to answer any questions that you ask? The IRS might want you to show up for one of their administrative courts, and you have a right to remain. Thank you. In this meeting, anything that I say can and be used against me in a court of law? Question mark. If they say yes, okay, zip. Has anybody accused me of committing a crime? Is there a sworn affidavit submitted on the file from anyone alleged that I have caused them injury? That's what the Fourth Amendment says, oath and affirmation. That means somebody had to swear that you did something. Because anonymous complaints are not constitutional. Okay, is there a constitutionally compliant warrant or summons issued that grants you lawful authority to keep me here or search my property? Okay, so those are just some of the questions that you can ask public officials. I'm going to turn it over to Tony now, our esteemed guest, whenever he's ready. And he's going to share about coordination. And so if you want to look in your packet while he's getting ready, it should be an introduction to coordination. And basically, I was introduced to coordination from my my mentor, Fred Kelly Grant. And basically, we went to Heartland, Wisconsin, and there was a vape factory up there. And the board of supervisors over there was complaining that the Food and Drug Administration came over and told them to shut down the vape factory. Okay, so there's 250 people local, working there locally, and the Food and Drug Administration is saying we're shutting you down. Okay, and Fred happened to know this process called coordinations. And of all things that we're using, it's called the National Environmental Policy Act. Okay, NEPA, and we think, well, how is the environment involved? There's 4 elements of the environment, and they violated many of these during COVID. Number 1 is the natural environment, which is the rivers and the trees, the waters and the lakes and streams. You just can't, poison oil and dump it in and have it dump it in the streams and cause injury to other people's drinking water or public waterways. That would be causing injury, so we need to protect the natural environment. Second part of the environment is the human environment. You know how the BLM wants to go shut down trails? Oh, we don't have hiking over here. This is conservation. You can't come over here. We're going to close this area off. No hiking or biking over here. So the human environment has equal leverage as the natural environment. Third, economic environment, right? If the economic environment in this Heartland, Wisconsin coordination issue, it was going to cost 250 local jobs. And social environment, okay? So when we got hit with COVID, how many environments were involved? We had our social environment, economic environment, and human environment all infringed upon. Whenever you're ready, Tom. And so we could have did coordination. In fact, I put a notice to the Tuolumne County Health Department Director that you're violating your oath of office and you're going to be sued. Plus, I'm going to investigate you for fraud because I think you're falsifying documents to get extra money, right? There wasn't the feds giving every county for every COVID death. So if you got hit by a truck and you were dead and they went and swabbed you with the PCR test, then they could say on your death certificate that you died of COVID, which is nonsense. So I called her on all that stuff, and she ended up stepping down, which wouldn't have protected her anyways, but I ended up moving back to Pennsylvania. So I didn't forgive me for not following through with that up here, but I had elderly parents that I had to take care of. So anyways, Tony's going to talk about the rest of the process of coordination. And let's give Tony a hand for coming here. I'd like to take up a special offering. He drove 600 miles and paid a couple $100 for a hotel room. So we would like to bless this man for coming down here and giving us the good information. So you could do that on your way out, but no further ado here.
Okay, I guess this is working. How many people here are familiar with the term coordination? Not too many, okay. There is under this administrative state that we're in today, they have drafted, they have drafted statutes that make local government equal to the agency. Now, I don't know if that's a guilt trip on their part, or trying to say, here, we're trying to help you now, because we gave these agencies, like the BLM and the EPA and all of them, so much power. Here, we're gonna give you these laws that maybe give you a chance to fight back. And it's called, under the umbrella, coordination. What it is a juris durium, that's Latin for sister or the same. There's three basic statutes: Federal Land Management Planning Act, Forest Management Planning Act, and Environmental Quality Act, wherein the language, and Tony touched on it or somebody did, shall not, the term shall not means a mandate. You can't deviate from it. Doesn't let you off. So, and there's one other law, National Environmental Policy Act, that says the agency shall, no wiggle room, shall coordinate to enhance man's, quote unquote, man's, people, persons, their environment with the other natural environment. They shall. So that means they have to talk to you. Okay, so there's a process. I happen to have the good fortune to, Tony mentioned it a couple of times. A gentleman's named by Fred Cunningham. He had started his career as in charge of major crimes in Baltimore. And then when a judge in Idaho, Judge Windmill, started picking on his ranch, wouldn't let you grow.
Judge Windmill is being, filing a remonstrance and petition to have him remove his what do you call it, his retirement. I'm gonna put this mic on you. Oh, I'm interrupting you.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
So yeah, we're trying to impeach, good old Lynn Windmill. Interesting that you brought him up because you weren't aware of that, huh?
No.
Sorry.
Am I okay?
Okay. Let me get to that.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, Tony, can I make a special comment?
Yeah.
I think we should, put it upon the hearts here, if any of you know any, orders from Tony.
Okay, yeah, that's working.
We need to establish a special fund for him so that he can purchase a computer that has been produced in the 21st century. I think he's completely right. He's all, it's held together with tape. You know, I prioritize this thing.
No, that's fine, that's fine. So, one of the three federal laws, particularly the Land Management Planning Act, says the secretary, that meaning the Secretary of Interior, which is the boss of all the other agencies, says the secretary shall not make any plan or proposal or take any action that is not consistent with the local plan. He's locked in to talking to you and being consistent with what you want locally. So you folks need to do some research, I think. I can't provide all of it here today in this short time on the coordination process. Because the way it's structured, if you don't I'll say exactly follow the proper footsteps, positions, and what you have to, actions, excuse me, actions you have to take, then you will not prevail. And those, just one of the steps that you have to take, for example, to bring them to the table, it's called a demand letter. You write a letter. Okay, first of all, let me back up. I'm giving you the wrong impression as that you as people, persons can do this. You can't. It has to be government to government. So if you want to start something and bring up an issue on how they're using the forest, you need to get a government entity to be with you, and that could be a school district. I don't know if you have irrigation districts up here. It could be an irrigation district, it could be a farmer's district, some minor political subdivision of the county where the supervisors appointed them to start the district, and then they were elected by the people within the boundaries of that district. So find a government entity and then send a demand letter. Now, that demand letter, you don't want to get off the tracks. You want to be very specific. You tell them to attend a meeting for the purpose of land management planning, whatever, at this time and place, at this location, and you are expected to coordinate at this meeting. That's just the beginning part of what you have to do. What's important about this is it gives you some of your rights back. Anyone got a question right now? Okay. In California, now that's the federal level, and it works in California also. In California, Title VII, California Code 65030, and it says in there, they shall, that means county or the state, shall coordinate, and it has to be of the same kind and class of a complaint that you're making, and be synonymous to the cause and effect of what that's going to be. In other words, if you prevail in your complaint, what's going to happen? Along with the California Constitution and California's Environmental Quality Act, they require coordination. And here's an interesting thing I always thought. California's environmental justice law, the definition of what it says, requires coordination for all the people. So this is a method that you can employ. I don't know what else I want to tell you in regards to how you implement it. Yes, ma'am.
What was the title number again?
I'm sorry?
What was the title number again?
Oh,
California.
Title VII, California Code 65030. It's land management. Now, what you want to do in preparation before you ever start doing it, if you're going to deal on a local basis, you need to get your county's local plan. Every county, I believe, has one. Does Tuolumne County have a local plan, Tony? Okay. You get Tuolumne's local plan. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. and read the thing and see what it says. What it does is it spells out how you can use your property by their rules. And if there's things in there that are unconstitutional, you want to change them. But you need to get a copy of that first, so you can see where you're going and what you're going to do. Try not to involve attorneys. For the simple reason, every time I've had an attorney join me in a coordination case, they blew it. Because they're thinking in the administrative state process. They're not elevating them. And part of the other reason is most attorneys won't take it on because there's no payday. There's no way for them to make any money or get paid from this process. I'll give you a quick short story. On a coordination case that a coordination process that I chaired, you heard about the dams down south or up north at the Klamath River being removed. They removed 4 clean energy hydroelectric dams from the river, producing 0 carbon footprint on the river. They started that process 10, 12 years ago. The Fire Protection District, you may have one here in Tuolumne County, I don't know, but the Fire Protection District of Lake Copco, where this community was behind one of the dams around the lake, wanted to stop it, and they wanted to use coordination. So I sat down with their board of directors. We went over the process and everything they have to do and the letters they had to write and what they had to say. And to my amazement, Department of Interior said, yeah, we'll be there. So was the Department of Justice, Bureau of Water Reclamation, California Fish and Game, and some information department in the federal government I'd never heard of before. So we sat down, opened the meeting, and after introductions, I said to the federal people and the state, I said, you're here to coordinate the issues and concerns of the Fire Protection District, is that correct? Oh yeah, we want to listen, no, we want to. I said, no. I had to ask them 5 times to coordinate. They knew that if they agreed to coordinate, they were bound. They eventually said, yeah, we'll coordinate. First they said they'd cooperate, then they said they would consult. It took 5 times to get them to admit to it. Okay, long story short. We had a series of, if I remember correctly, 5 meetings discussing the issues of firefighting and drawing water from the dams to fight forest fires, issues of the water table going down and wells going dry. And then I called the sheriff and he said, yeah, I'll come. He showed up and he said, I don't want the dams out because they're a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of my people of Siskiyou County. What? Okay. So they had to discuss those issues with the Fire Protection District, with the sheriff. Then I was fortunate enough, I got the Shasta Indian Nation representative to come in. And she read them the Riot Act and told them what the issue with them, with the Shastas was that under the water of 2 of the lakes were, and if I remember correctly, 183 burial sites of Shasta ancestors. And on top of that, the state law said that when that condition exists, you can't touch them. But they did anyway. Because when the dams came out, the graves started showing. So anyway, that was 10, 12 years ago. At the end of the last meeting, they said, well, you guys are just being obstinate. I said, you have to come up with a plan. You have to offer us a plan that is consistent with our plan, which was not to take the dams out. They didn't do that. They said, well, we'll be back later. And they walk up and never heard from them again. So we sent a letter, one of the steps. I have a saying that when you open the door of coordination, you step into the possibility of litigation. And it depends on where that goes. But what we did, we drafted a letter complimenting Salazar. Salazar was the Secretary of Interior at that time. We drafted a letter complimenting him on his employees' decor or demeanor. And then at the end of the letter, we said, by the way, Mr. Secretary, you do know that federal law requires you to be consistent with our plan, as long as it isn't in conflict with federal law. And if you do not comply with the federal law, we will take appropriate action. I didn't say we would sue you. I just said we would take appropriate action. That was 10 years ago, so we had a short win under coordination. Fred Kelly Grant and I had a couple of wins. I wish I could remember. Do you remember, Tony?
Hartland, Wisconsin, the FDA tried to shut down the vape factory, and they backed off after coordination was involved, so we won that one.
Yeah. So it can work, but you've got to be persistent. You've got to have every piece of information that's available, and you have to be ready to be stern but patient. So I highly recommend it on the local level. But find a government entity that will cooperate with you in your endeavors to create and solve a situation. Are there any questions?
Do you have any business cards?
Huh?
Do you have business cards?
Do I have business cards?
Yes.
I do somewhere. I do. Yes, ma'am.
From what I understand, are they continuing the dam removal? Is it staying?
I'm afraid all four of them are gone.
But it's going to continue from what I understand, right?
I'm sorry.
From what I understand, it's going to continue throughout, I believe, the states. Or the removal of dams. I mean, they're both
Across the United States.
Huh?
Across the United States, they plan on reviling.
By the way, this dam removal stuff, we were the test case. Well, we weren't really the first test case. They removed 2, 3, half a dozen in the state of Washington, small ones. But we were the largest in the history of the United States of dam removals. They're after the Snake River. They're after the Columbia River. They want to remove all the hydroelectric there is, even though it's. How what? I wish I knew. I'm sorry, man. I'm so hard of hearing.
How are they supposed to store water?
They don't care. They don't care about. I'm serious. They preach we got to store water. They preach that, but they don't care. They really don't care. I wish I brought it with me. Have any of you here heard of the biodiversity treaty? Sorry, did somebody read? No? Wow. President Clinton, when he was in office, signed the biodiversity treaty. It went to the Senate for ratification. The treaty was with the United States and the UN. And I wish I had it with me today. I'm sorry I even brought it up, but the entire United States, continental United States, is in 3 colors: red, yellow, and orange. Red, animals only. Orange, animal thoroughfares, they can walk in there, but you can't. And the other is that's where they can live, and the rest of us have to be in cities. The only reason that didn't pass, that treaty, is because the Senate, there was a lady senator from Texas, can't remember her name. She brought it before the Senate and showed it to them, and they looked at that and they said, no way. So it didn't get ratified, but it's being implemented today. The dam removal is little part of that biodiversity treaty. That's why that's happening. There's a whole host of other things that are going to happen. And this is where coordination, if you can instill one of your local political subdivision governments, fire protection districts, I would think up here in this mining country, there would be fire protection districts. Maybe not, I don't know. But boy, you have to, because it's a coordination process. Yes, ma'am.
We have a score of our districts all over the county.
Okay.
There's Miwok, there's Columbia.
Oh, well then good. You need to get one of those. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask, what about people who are living,
I'm sorry.
below the dams? What about people who have nuclear?
They don't care. See, that's the hard part. We are normal people. We have feelings that we care for everybody else. They don't care. They don't care if you get shot. You gotta realize you're up against an enemy that doesn't care about you. Doesn't care about your livelihood, your happiness. Yes, sir.
The objective is not the environment. The objective is to get rid of that hydropower.
Yes.
So we don't have the energy.
The objective is
get rid of all that agricultural water so we don't have the other. That's their objectives are to destroy the country and protect the environment.
okay, and their objective. They don't care. So they want to depopulate. They want to depopulate and put us all in little cubicles like they are in Japan. You just look at how the people in Japan live. And in China, I mean, that's what they're after. So,
15 minutes.
all these things that are happening to us, all the harassments that Tony has fought, all of that is part of this biodiversity treaty. That's the base of all of this starting. Depopulation.
Can we sue somebody for implementing a treaty?
Sue
It's
them?
not legal. It's not legal. It has to
Well, do what Tony's doing, but he's fighting an uphill battle. See, you want to do something. You're mad.
well, yeah, I mean, these are our
Okay.
servants.
Well, then what you have to do is get one of these little districts. Okay, I'll give you mining districts. I know you have a mining district up here. You talk to Tony about this before you do anything. In 1872, the mining law was passed. That was a constitutional Congress at that time that was duly seated, both all states and all the congressmen and senators from those states were constitutional seats. When I say constitutional seats, can I get a little off tangent, Tony?
Go for it.
Okay, I say constitutional seats because, and he touched on it, the oath of office. When I showed you the 1871 District of Columbia Act where they incorporated the United States, that also changed the oath of office. They took out the word America. You look at the oath of office today, it doesn't say the United States of America. It says the United States. I'll get back to the constitutional seat here in a minute. I'll give you another example. When the Monetary Reform Act was passed, and I showed you that in 1913, all of the states that had been admitted to the Union up to that point in time, 1913 approximately, if you look in their granting documents of becoming statehood, it says they were admitted to the United States of America. In fact, California even mentions the Book of Statutes. It says that California's grant was in volume 9, page 51, in 1850. What is the Book of Statutes? Has anybody heard of it? I'm getting, I got so much stuff going through my head. Okay, you heard of the Federal Register. Everybody knows about the Federal Register, right? Okay, that wasn't passed until around the 1960s for the simple reason agencies, BLM, Environmental Protection Agency, whatever it is, cannot publish in the Book of Statutes. And the reason is agencies are not elected and they cannot publish in the Book of Statutes because only Congress can do that. A law and a rule is not enforceable. I'm not saying illegal, I'm saying it's not enforceable under a legal premise of publication. Until that law is publicized for public consumption and they know about it, then it's enforceable. Agencies couldn't enforce their rules because they couldn't publish in the Book of Statutes. So they created the Federal Register for that purpose only. Okay, unconstitutional seats. 1913, that was about the same time, but up between 1913 and 1920. Okay, we had Lincoln got assassinated, we had the President false impeachment charges, we had the District of Columbia Act, and we're going forward. As we had elections, series of the elections every cycle, we started with our representatives sitting in constitutional seats. They represented the United States of America. Okay? As the election cycle proceeded, and under this new corporate government, and because they changed the oath of office from the United States of America, when the next cycle got elected, whoever they were, Congress or House of Representatives or Senate, they took the oath to the United States. And when they sat back down in their seat, they no longer represented us. And as we have gone through the election cycles, every seat has been recycled into the United States Federal Corporation. So they are not even constitutional representatives of us, we the people. That all happened back 150 years, 200 years ago. Have I jumped around too much?
It's okay, it's education.
We've been okay so far?
So, I was actually part of a group of folks down here that tried to execute coordination here in Columbia County regarding the wildfires, and this was in 2019. With Kate Fred, actually, it was live. It was his, Tony and we were working together. And actually, Kathy, Scylla, and me, and David Avila went to talk to the head of the forest, Stanislaus Forest. His name is Jason Piper.
Well, you don't want to talk to the Forest Service.
Oh,
Well, you can talk to them, I'm not saying. if you want to get a government entity together, it has to be away from the Forest Service. They're in control.
Right, we just wanted to.
Okay, if you want to talk to them and have some, if you want to be equal, get a fire protection district that will let you talk for them, and the fire protection district, not you personally, but the fire protection district brings the complaint. Okay, or the irrigation district brings the complaint, or the mining district. I got off of that. I said, okay. In 1872, when the Constitutional Congress passed the mining law, they gave full autonomy to the miners. They can, within their mining district boundaries, this is critical, that's why you want to stay within your county boundaries, but within the mining district boundaries, the law says, and any governing issues will be resolved by the miners. Any. They can elect a sheriff, they can set up a court, they can set up legislation and rules, and they can tell the federal government to go suck an egg. Okay? This is all part of coordination, but it's how you do it. I know I've jumped around and covered a lot of stuff here. I didn't mean to do that. So, is there anything else? I got a million things going through my head. But I have to tell you, I don't know. I'm going to be 88 in July. And that's only by the grace of God. I'll tell you that. Because a wild Italian like me, yes, sir.
Talking about the corporation, you know, you've got the, I think it's called the Delaware Corporation.
I'm sorry, sir.
Delaware Corporation.
No, they're not Delaware.
The United States of America is a corporation.
No, not the United States of America.
Well,
The United States is a corporation.
correct. The United States is a corporation that's owned by England, the Vatican, goes to the Vatican.
Well, that I don't know, okay? But they were incorporated by the United States of America, who they're the legal body that incorporated the United States. That's why it's so important for us to get back to the United States of America. It doesn't matter who owns it.
So the reason that the United States of America incorporated the United States is due to a financial issue?
Yes, the bankers, yes, the Rothschilds and Vanderbilts and all of them said, we aren't going to, I'm sorry.
We're gonna do Q&A, and we're gonna have, he's gonna be on the panel, and we're gonna do like a half-hour questions. But
That's okay.
you can revisit the questions, but yeah, I had another speaker.
I'm sorry.
But you can finish up your point.
I'm done.
Okay, so we're gonna bring him up again for Q&A for the last half hour of the conference, and we can revisit that real quick. I'll use the handheld, but I did a little trick on doing that, I think. But anyways, yeah, thank you, Tony. And we're going to revisit the coordination during our Q&A panel, and I'm thankful that you came down. I appreciate you coming down. I kind of screwed up the schedule, but we gave him his 35 minutes, but we're going to bring him back in. And I have a guest here, Robin. Can you come up real quick? I was having some discussions about what's going on, you know, with social services and stuff, and then I'm going to bring my special mystery guest up here. But I wanted you to share that what you were telling me the other day real quick, just for a couple minutes.
My name is Robin Snyder, and I was a social worker for many, many years in Stanislaus County, and I work with public health and social services, and I'm still in contact with. And I'm still in contact with a lot of people that are currently still working there. And so Tony and I had a discussion the other day he thought might be interesting to a lot of us that you might not know. But we were talking about the illegals that come over the border, like millions of them. And they are receiving cash aid and food stamps on what you call a debit card, which is called an EBT card. Same as your debit card, but it's called an EBT card. And they're also receiving free medical and dental services that you have to pay for. And in addition to that, I want to add, I remember not too long ago, I was at a client's house, and there was a Hispanic grandfather visiting. And he said he was going to stay, and he was disabled. And I said, so how are you making it? What are you doing financially? I'm getting SSI here. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah. So I went back to the office, and I talked to people who were doing the welfare, social services, and SSI. And they said, yeah, that's been going on for a really long time. So you can come over here from another country, never pay into the system, never work here, and you can get disability people, disability, yes you can. And then of course you add in your welfare, your food stamps, your medical, your dental, all those services. And in a lot of states, in a lot of different situations, they're providing free housing. And in a lot of areas, they're even kicking out veterans from housing to give to the illegals as well. And we're all paying for all that. Our tax dollars is paying for all of that. So it's like, it's educational. I have mentioned this to other people over the last couple of years and go, oh no, that can't be, that's not legal. It is happening big time everywhere. And California is one of the worst. Yeah. So he wanted me to educate you about that if you don't already know about it. But you know, it's pretty scary stuff. So.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
Ro.
you're welcome.
Yeah, we were talking over at Virginia's house, and yeah, she's within the system. So this is an hearsay, right? We know this for a fact. And social services are supposed to be there for the people. You guys, you baby boomers in this room, you guys pay more money into the system than anybody else. You guys built this country, and all that money that's going in there, they won't give you a cost of living raise, but they're giving this free money. And this is the whole thing. One person can make a difference. There's things we could do. AB 957, I got that bill stopped. Newsom, he vetoed that bill, and he said in his press release, this will not pass the courts. I got the remonstrance back there. He was going to get sued. And so was this, and I am suing Senator Weiner for this, but we stopped AB 957, and they're not going to stop on this transgender. So evil prevails when good people do nothing. So everybody's here for a reason. Anybody that wants to step out and do something, you know, I can assist you the best I can. But I want to call Mr. Carson up here because we're talking about social services. We're talking about alphabet agencies that are supposed to protect instead of abuse. So you want to come up and share your story? And then I'm going to have Ty actually come up immediately after him. Thanks for coming. And everybody saw how Trump got already, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been happening for a long time. Thanks for coming. You just got to
All right, check 1, 2. Good job. And it disappears. So I had Tony post me as Carson. My name is Thomas Rockwell, Alan Thomas Rockwell. Stories that are close to home. My grandparents built the third home in Willow Springs subdivision back in 1966. Grandmother worked at the hospital, and Grandpa was a contractor. This community, at certain levels of the political realm, breaks my heart. If you haven't met me before, you might have seen me on the front page about 2.5, 3 years ago, 5 times. You might have seen a man in court at trial, a man that understood just by appearing in trials, just to kind of absorb our legal system throughout the state and nation. But if somebody has a guinea pig, no criminal history, no parking tickets, no anything, if they have a guinea pig at home, you got 20 days to get your affairs in order. I'm an honorably discharged veteran. I founded a local veterans nonprofit that grants final wishes for veterans at end of life with no money. Excuse me. Never a great work, never an audit on the nonprofit, even an audit, not even an audit on myself. I'm a solo father. It's relevant because here I was at 50 years old having my first child. So at 52 and a half, I get a call from a social worker that displaces us from our home here in Tuolumne County. A social worker. Legally, that is not, to remove someone from their home, you have to get them to permanently out or short-term out. That's some type of eviction. It was an unlawful eviction. As I called eviction companies, they said, wait a second, a county agency social worker threatened you with arrest? You have damages. That's a federal. We can't touch this. Institution after institution. I'm summarizing a lot of this because it's a story. I called attorneys right away. And guess what happens that very week? We get an eviction moratorium. How's this relevant? I had a relative that was in my home that I had saved from that I played the role and stepped up when nobody else, including his social workers, did not step up to get him out of a trap house, a drug house that was known and many arrests at a local apartment complex here in town. If I said the name, you would all know it, but there's some good people that live in that complex also. There are probably 1,000 people there, so I already hear the neighborhood being whispered. So on a given day, I get a call from probably a local nonprofit. Hey, can you help this veteran out? Yeah, actually, what's his name? Wow, that's a distant uncle. So, as a solo dad that had just taken in 4 extra foster kids, and I'm just painting a picture, not patting myself on the back, but it's good to know some of the details. So I go from the mountain that we owned, Quartz Mountain on Jacksonville Road, piece of property that the county would love to have, with the gold mine history and everything, 12 acres, beautiful big home that I was doing emergency housing for local veterans, free transportation all these years for emergency services, because there is no veteran service system that at last minute will take a local veteran to Palo Alto VA, Livermore, Fresno, Mathers. If it's scheduled in advance, there are systems in play, but otherwise they have to go through the local healthcare system, and that's not always the favorable path for some of our veterans that are 70, 80, 90 years young. So I load my 5 kids up, my 2.5-year-old baby, the 4 foster kids, a 2-year-old girl, 9, 11, 13-year-old boys. Obviously, I have a clean enough record to take foster kids in an emergency. So much of an emergency, it was from Merced County. They had nobody down there that could take in 4 kids to keep them all together in the first 24 hours, nor did Tuolumne. So I go over there during the year of the big snowstorm, about 3.5, 4 years ago, not even that. And I get to the house, and there's eviction notices. I open the door. It's gang. The smell is death. It's gangrene. My uncle can speak. He's lying in a bed with human stuff all over the floors. His drug relative is passed out, doped up in the next bedroom. Eviction notices on there. Drug paraphernalia, not just here and there, everywhere. Stolen hard drives, stolen property, gangrene, children. I call 911. I'm called for a food delivery in this case. I call 911. We get him to the evidence cell Sonora. He's got gangrene. My uncle testified that he had maybe 3 days to live, according to the doctor. Jumping ahead a little bit, my uncle says, I know you don't do long-term housing, but what would it take? I have no other family. We weren't close. I'd never been to this house. He was a meth addict for decades. My other uncle had alcohol problems, had been to jail 9 times with 9 divorces on top of this. So families have a black sheep. I said I grew up with a black family. I was on a different track. We pick our courses. Right when we think we have our plans in place, somebody up top refreshes us. I am directed by the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Department that I can't even act on his behalf without, as far as his eviction, getting in and out of the home, without a power of attorney. Common sense to me, never been in a power of attorney position before that I recall. But I go ahead and I call the professionals. I call a law firm. I call a very well-known local accountant person that sets this stuff up, writes it custom, has my uncle involved. It's notarized by a very noted notary. I have another veteran there that has gone off to be a president of another veterans organization, managing these children that I'm blessed with. To paint more of the picture, my beautiful son, he's now 6.5 years old. So I take this whole event happens right as my son is diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So already our first year and a half, we're living back and forth at Shriners and Stanford Specialized Care Therapy Helmet. Because of CP, cerebral palsy had not been, the markers hadn't shown up. They thought it was torticollis, another situation. I become power of attorney for my uncle, a man who's overdrawn, bless his heart, we've all been there. Overdrawn, has nothing there but drugs, a house that's smelled of mold and gangrene, sprinklers from the landscape have been flooding his floor forever, but he didn't want people in there. So I destroyed a lot of his Vietnam pictures, his history, his things. It was a nightmare to where you just can't do enough for somebody, or have that dream where you just can't run fast enough to save something or make a difference. And I'm there, what do I do? I take my uncle in. I'm blessed to be in that position. It wasn't easy. Having one kid can be pretty challenging. 5 kids, all my veterans that I was blessed to help transport, provide services for. My uncle who served in the Vietnam era. I think I'm following all the right steps. I strived to be godly and bring my uncle into a situation that would help him at least pick his paths to live the rest of his life the way he wanted to, and they said that he wouldn't live much longer. On top of this, so with the home, 1 bedroom being downstairs, 3 being upstairs, made a lot of changes, put him in the lower room. The children, the foster kids, family, parent and stepfather, they met the requirements, so the children went back at a certain point once they met their criteria. Over a year, my uncle has full surgeries, he has every access. I'm providing housing, transportation. I'm then even setting up for him to own the property, the real estate. And California is a paper trail state, you gotta have your stuff in writing. I get a real estate broker. I get a professional involved that's licensed through the state. I follow the directions. I have the emails, I have the phone call records, I have paperwork. She lines up a second power of attorney for just that piece of real estate through American Title. It's a company that's not brand new on the block, but they have their pros too. I know title companies, I know realtors. I'm at the health food store during the pandemic. I'm the guy that gets a call at the beginning of the pandemic. The guy with the message emails, and I have the screenshots to prove it. I'm the guy that's in Modesto that gets a message that we'd all be just blessed to have in our circle. And that is, the pandemic hadn't started yet. So I reach out with the information I get, and I get a future judge in this county on the phone. So I'm not going to spin your wheels. We had a new acquaintance friendship. And I said, I have it on good authority. You can validate it all you want, but it can't hit social media yet because people will take the information and act their own way. It's very new for us. I said, I'm picking up a veteran and taking him back east, but things are going to be shutting down. So much so, I said I've even texted a local senator who was on the military committee, appointed by Newsom, she's a Republican. Not relevant. And I got her on the phone when I first got the info. And I said, Miss Shannon Grove, who asked me to replace her as 34th District Assembly person a few years ago, before she went to Senate. It was in Bakersfield, so we're Bakersfield. Ties there. And I said, I'm sure you know this, you get a million calls, I don't spin your wheels at all. I said, I'm sure you know, since you're on the military subcommittee or the committee for military for California, I'm sure you know they're activating the National Guard right now in Bakersfield. She says, no, I didn't. I validate this, she calls Kevin McCarthy, Bakersfield, future Speaker of the House at that given point. Love or hate him, this is just what chain of events. There's a mess where political leaders were not even involved on information. I'm local. I'm striving to be careful and godly. I inform the powers that be, Laura Krieg, DA at that point, eventually the judge, one of the judges. Gets me in contact, I said, you call the sheriff, they'll need to know this. Give me somebody else, who's gonna be the next person? She puts me in contact with the public health officer. Email back and forth, get on the phones. I said, what do you guys need from back east? I'm lost. You need respirators? I'm going out with a full load of everything with this veteran, and I'm coming back empty. I can go to New York. I can do anything we need. What do we need in our community? I have the emails. So the guy up here isn't the guy that's looking for an excuse to get past 5 DUIs that happen in life. I don't have any. I owned a bar for 18 years in Bakersfield. I don't drink. I didn't have to be an inmate to be the warden. Eventually, for stepping into new zones to help and support, I was convicted. I jaywalked. It's a conviction. I walked across the street. Have I broken laws? Have I sped on the highway? Broken the speed limit by 5, 10, 15 miles an hour? I grew up in this town in a GTO. I had a 68 GTO also. I've done things. But because, and what it finally came down to, in a period of 26 months, with those people being in my house and under my care, and the 2 people that were authorized by Adult Protective Services that were former squatters that I couldn't get off that property, we go into an eviction moratorium. All of a sudden, the squatters that were moving out on Friday had taken my uncle 2 days before to the local Bank of America on Motorway when they were still there. And when I went to the health food store, all of a sudden, a card that I'm on the account, my power of attorney, had all the background with Bank of America a year prior, all kinds of transactions, food, groceries, everything legitimate. I race over to the bank because it appears on the laptop that the card is shut down. And it appears that my uncle has physically gone into the bank. Well, that's interesting. I race over to the bank. I meet with the manager. She says, Mr. Rockwell, nice to meet you. I see you on television. I see you with our vets. And on social media back then, I was Rockwell Sonora because I produced music in a lot of areas and people would write me for what band's playing? Or what town are you talking about? So it'd be Rockwell, Bakersfield or Nashville or Texas, yada, yada. She turns white as a ghost when I say, did potentially a big, rough-looking guy come in with this picture of my uncle the other day? And she goes, oh my God, it makes sense. She gets the teller. She comes back. She goes, I'm not supposed to say anything, but it's you. She was trying to put this together. She didn't know me as Alan Thomas Rockwell and Pilots of Wishes and putting it all together. She just had a person come in with my uncle who could not survive. He's closest soul, he's in heaven now. Could not survive without getting through the day with his methadone, oxycodone, and Percocet, the different things that he needed that were prescribed based on his military injuries and services, as the story goes. The checks, while he's even purchasing the home, there's not 26 checks. I am incarcerated for 9 months. Put in jail, gets worse. As I was shown as guilty for writing the checks. The checks were written to the nonprofit. The exact amount went to pay the mortgage. It wasn't in my name, it was to the actual owner on title. Never showed that I got a nickel of anything, and I hadn't. Excuse me. The total final claim of everything for 26 months is that my uncle, but I never heard him say this, and we never had this agreement. I had notarized documents, just the opposite. That my uncle eventually made a claim that I was going to provide all of his housing and his utilities. Tell me you can find a studio for this work in Sonora. Excuse me. For $33 a day. I would pay for his home, his utilities, his cigarettes, his transportation in a Mercedes-Benz Super Sprinter, all of his fuel. By the way, pay off all of his forward bills, pay off his car that was a 2006 Buick, something Enclave or something, low mileage. I never drove it. I don't smoke, and he caked that vehicle with smoke. Just his world. I'm a baby, I'm not around that. I never smoked, and I just don't. I pay off everything. I emptied his old home that he was being evicted from. I pay for all the storage for the next 2 years plus. And I'm supposed to do this for $1,000 a month. I want that kind of deal in our housing shortage community. He's on a 12-acre, 2-story, 4-bedroom, 3-car garage with a beautiful in-ground pool, 10-year-old home on 12 acres with a Mercedes-Benz and storage buildings and stuff for his 68 Javelin, his 2006 Enclave, and I'm storing everything for him. And I don't have a right to even minimum wage all of a sudden, according to the trial. I don't get 50 cents an hour. I'm supposed to provide 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care. I don't know how that's possible. The labor commissioner, I'm told that they're not to touch it because we have the open case. I want to know where I can get any kind of deal like that. So here's the penalty. The $1,000 a month, excuse me, taking into the number that they said I was guilty of on these checks over 26 months. They're saying I went over the authorized budget of $14,000 over that period of time he was in my care. His statement is that I should have done everything for $33 a day, which is $1,000 a month. I was prosecuted, found guilty of writing the checks, which my name is printed on every single check from the bank. All the proper documents that I'm aware of, they will still, government agencies and towns still walk you through to do it the way I did it. I know this because people come to me and say, I'm being told to do it the same way you did it. I'm lost. I don't know a different way. Have a notary, have third parties involved on this. I was prosecuted, incarcerated, separated from my son and my veterans, and they're not all young veterans, so they had passed. There's not a lot of services up there that we would hope that we also have to support them. We all have our situations. For going over budget, $17.95 a day. I was supposed to house, feed, provide skilled or semi-skilled support, nursing, issue his medications 4 to 6 times a day, depending on which eye and the different medical pills and different insulin, cook all of his meals, provide all of his food, and keep this other family there that he, squatters, enjoyed having there because he liked the family atmosphere he felt. So I'm feeding the 4-person family himself, providing all the bills, and paying a $2,645 a month mortgage on a house worth at that point, at Rector J.D. Reinhardt said $640, $650 on 12 acres, big home. And I'm supposed to feed that whole family, do all of this for $1,000 a month. To this day, you'll love this. How many times, when do you think my first interview from law enforcement would have been? can be mind-boggling. You know, to this day, I've never been interviewed. You know, there's a California law or some term for this, that any investigation by Adult Protective Services, the local sheriff's departments, to oversee the investigation. You know, the deputy actually admitted he never even made an attempt. No email, no door knock, no text. My phone number's been the same for 25 years. The address, I've been there since 2016 there. All of this, and even on the stand, he swore that he did not make an attempt. The Adult Protective Services worker never asked to meet with me. No recording, no other person on the line. During what? The one phone call where she said, "You're not to see or speak with your uncle." I'm sorry, he lives in my house. You know, at this point, you know, it's a shock on a Monday morning when I'm announcing my baby. And she says, "Well, has it closed escrow with his name on it?" And I said, "Well, no, but there's a title company involved, all the documents are set." She goes, "Words of warning. If you see or speak with him, you'll be arrested." I'm in shock. I'm arrested. I open a federal lawsuit. Thank goodness for Tony Pellegrino. Hearing about him at a forum like this, it opened up the doors that, hey, I'm not completely helpless here. Things are not in a way that we're supposed to be taking everything for granted, that the system's going to work. I started having attorneys call me from other areas saying, "We love your case. There's so much corruption in our town of Morgan Hill or Atherton or these other places." They said, "We're making money off this. The counties are corrupt. Your story is prime." But I didn't have a ton of money. My partner on the property dies during this, my business partner. We've been partner flipping houses for years. And my uncle, all of a sudden, is under the care of the squatters, that the unscreened squatters, and they did a background or something eventually in court, and it came out what their real history had been. My son, to miss that year together, and the year it took to get into court, the time, the preparation, I love my son. The dynamics of how people raise, you know, the people that did step up as nannies and such, different understandings on how to raise a child. And his diet's very sensitive and things, so we have a very strict diet of raw vegetables, raw goat. That really helped him through things. Another video game dad, hands-on, and we do physical therapy every 90 minutes. It's just what it takes to help with his situation, which is, I couldn't ask for a better blessing in this world than to have my son. There is not an easy button to push to change everything. I talked to retired sheriffs, I talked to the longest serving police commissioner in the state of California that I've known 25 years, Ken Vetter. He says, "You've got a prime story, and you're able to get up to a microphone and talk to people about it. But there's going to be 1,000 people, 10,000 people that are never going to get to that microphone, that are never going to get their kids back." I've heard that CPS can be a corruption situation where it's a $68 billion cash grab for taking children. I'm not saying that there's some magic statement that really defines everybody's heart. There's a lot of good law enforcement people that really start when they're really hoping to make a good difference in this community. Things change. Like Shannon Groban said, she goes, you know, when we're talking about small business at a community network forum that I hosted every week for 5 years in my nightclub. We had church in the nightclub. They had wine at the Last Supper. And she says, you know, it's not always so cut and dry. Sometimes you have to give and take to represent the people that believe in you. Our cultures today are so full of self-centered, egotistical mind frames of keyboard warriors that because they have a Chinese laptop, that they can type anything they want without any accountability. That mind frame also applies to some people in political positions that make a choice that somehow change the way our world is. There was a club called America that said, hey, state, we'll let you in, you can come into our club. I'm not saying this is accurate. I only speak to show you how ignorant I am. You can come into our club, you can keep your state's rights. And all of you, and then at a given point, no, you can't. We're changing this. Oh, we want out. That might time coincidentally with the Civil War. I'm not saying that statement blankets all the truth. But we're getting more and more intertwined to a system that makes a decision for us without us even opening our eyes. Whether it's our cell phone broadcasting a signal and advertisers are battling to be able to get that frequency, whether it's cover streams on YouTube that makes us want to go to a fast food restaurant. But you know, one thing we don't have time to do a lot, and that is to get out of bed, get up, get in our foreign car with our foreign clothes on, and come down to a church and support something like this where we can at least hear a story, where we can at least know that something's going on. Some people, a lady came up to me in my nightclub one time and handed me a check for $2,600. What's this for? I gave it back, she wouldn't take it back. I'm busy, it's in my pocket. My business partner that had been there since '57, a Korean War veteran, says, "What's this check for?" I said, "Patty gave it to us." She says, "Just put it towards your projects." "Well, why aren't you cashing it?" I said, "Well, I don't want to be under the thumb of anybody." He says, "Did you ever look at yourself and stop being so self-centered?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Not everybody can do what you do. Anybody that would have business-minded would have bulldozed this bar down from 1931 and just built a new one and get rid of all the old reputation." He says, "Patty's dying of cancer right now. She likes coming to line dance lessons. She likes coming to your prayer breakfast. Not everybody can do everything, so we need other people." We lose 23 veterans a day to suicide. Pretty safe bet that they could all use a friend, some extra support. If anybody thinks these Chinese cameras and these foreign electronics are free, it's not. Somebody had to go paint a house, give a speech, write a book, serve our country to allow these things to be around us so we can even have exercise the right of free speech in a community that if you speak too loudly, you might not always be comfortable with the outcome. I don't know what they thought was going on, but I host a TV show that's on 626 cable networks, DirecTV Edition all over Europe, RFD's TV's True Country, for 15 years. That network, as soon as I was released from jail, said, "Get your butt out to Texas, we're filming the next season. We love that you stood up to California." It's not all of California. We have some of the greatest people here. Damn it, I love our vets. They're across this nation. But there's no way I can stand up and face anybody as a veteran, knowing that I've stood at the tomb of the unknown and seeing the million headstones, and not value that every one of those horizontal bodies represents somebody standing up for us in a time that's much harder than what we're having to deal with right now. So my story is this big. People's lives are so much more important to value, especially when we can get up and make a difference. Supporting this organization, supporting the person, getting to know a little bit about the person next to you that has a challenge or a need. At least say something nice. Say, "You might not even like the person. You can hate me, but if I can create a job and make a difference or get your cousin a medical bed, good for them. Good for you." Anyway, I'm blessed to be here. Tony and everybody that's taken the initiative to get up and be part of this, God bless you.
There's a lot that he didn't share. And it's a shame that we live in a community where your good deed is punished and you're locked up and you can't see your own child. And he had to pay for that house where people were living there for free. He had to pay the electric, he had to pay the rent. And then when he gets out, they're like, "Oh, well, you're going to have to pay restitution now." It's just, and I'm calling Ty up here next, because we got a lot of corruption here. And this is in our backyard. And all this Q talk, where we go one, we go all. Just a bunch of talk. Trust the plan? Hey, I'm all for Trump, but we just can't sit back and wait for the White House to come and save us, because the power is inherent
And the people.
in the people. And like I said, one person can make a difference. And we're our brother's keeper. That's what the Bible says. And, When people call me, you're gonna believe what happened to me, I always say, you know what, I'll take it at face value. I've heard the most horrendous stories. And Ty's a whistleblower, he's gonna come up and share his story. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Tony. I'm Ty Robert. IT guy. Do it all. I do write the work with Tony. We're writing and cracking codes is what we're doing because I got into this years ago. I used to work for the government. I grew up here in Sonora. I went to high school here in the 80s. My grandfather built the cabin up in Confidence in the 60s. I guess he bought the property back in the 40s. So we go back here. And I grew up in the Bay Area before I was here. Anyhow, I worked in the high-tech industry, and eventually I worked for the state of Nevada running their computer systems, and got married and had a family, was a normal guy living my life, and reported some wrongdoing there. The numbers weren't adding up on the computer systems, and the auditor who I worked for was saying that they weren't letting him audit the gold mines in Nevada, which is the 4th largest gold producing area in the world. Not just silver. Sonora is a silver state, but they also produce gold. And they were coming after him, and then they came after me like they come after Edward Snowden or Julian Assange, you know. And came at a bad time in my life because I had just had a kid, and got married, and that led to me being stalked by my coworkers, but the people I work for in the Department of Taxation, and they got caught, and rather than them getting punished, you know, they put sugar in the gas tank and were stalking me and my family, and freaked me out. And I found out who it was. The government, you know, came and protected them and came after me, and I stood up to them, and they didn't want to deal with that, so they're going to come at you with the full force of law enforcement. Right. So here, I'm a normal guy now. All of a sudden, I'm dealing with criminal charges, having to deal with that, and I decided to keep on fighting it because I didn't want to admit to guilt to something that I didn't do. And came here to Tuolumne County basically to deal with my legal stuff and have some peace because I was anonymous here. And I took a job right here across the street with waste management as a scale house attendant right here at the dump. And I was working up at Pinecrest and also over here. And they had, everyone's here has been to the dump, right? We all live here, you all go there. Sometimes it could be $25 for that truck. Next week it could be $50, right? Am I wrong? Yeah. Pretty much I tell the story and everybody goes, yeah, that's about right. Nobody's ever told me I'm wrong except for waste management in the county. So yeah, I took the job. I didn't really, it wasn't for the money. I was trying to get through, some hard times, and they weren't. They were overcharging the customers. Senior citizens weren't getting their discounts. They weren't paying me as a scale house attendant. Never got my medical insurance. Didn't pay me mileage because I was living up there at Pinecrest, so I'd drive down here to get the key and get the bank, the small $50 for the cash. But they never paid me for the mileage, right? And it was snowing. And I complained about this, and long story short, they fired me on the whole ordeal, and I reported it to the county. And I already knew about corruption from my other experience, but Tuolumne County, I was pretty laid back, grew up here, I wasn't involved, didn't know anybody in the politics of Tuolumne County. And anyhow, I went over there and talked to the director of solid waste and gave my complaint, a written complaint with the facts and some pictures and videos. And he was grateful for that and never heard back from him. And one day they had their solid waste committee, and I popped in on the Zoom call to find out what had happened to my complaint. And they said that my allegations were unsubstantiated. So I asked for a public records request for that complaint. They said, well, there's nothing to give you because there's no investigation. And I said, well, how come you told the board you passed this thing? You're calling me a liar, is what you're doing. You're calling me a liar, and you never investigated what you had a mandatory duty to do. So wound up filing a legal complaint on this because they have a duty to do their job, right? And that wasn't for money, it was just, it's called a writ of mandate in California, so the court could order them under the government code to perform their duty. And the county fought that and said that they had immunity. Well, I wasn't asking for money, I was just asking you to do your job. And then they spun that around, said I would have to post $50,000 bond, and then proceeded to call me a vexatious litigant. So now I have to go ask permission to file any civil litigation in court. But in the process of that, well, I did a little bit of research and found out all kinds of stuff. I mean, boy, where do I start? Let's go with the bond issue. All the officials, the board of supervisors, the sheriff, the district attorney, they all are required to have bonds. And there's a debate whether the California judges are or aren't, because there's not a law that says they have to, but there's not one that says that they don't have to. And in other states, they have to be bonded, and that bond is so if they violate your rights, that you can put a lien on the bond without having to go to court to cover your damages. So if they violate, the menu, I call it the menu. So it's $50,000 for, I don't know if it's $50,000, but if they violate your constitutional right, for example, there's a $250,000, right? So then they add up, and then you add your torts. At the end of the day, it's usually about $750,000 just to get started. That's the starting price of these things. And so they're not bonded, and then they didn't want to hear that, and then we went further down the rabbit hole, and they said, well, what we have is a self-funded insurance scheme, and they're allowed to do that by the code. But when they said that they passed the proclamation in 2021, December 7th, I did a little bit of research and watched the video that nobody would ever do. They never expected you to go back and actually look and watch the whole meeting. And because the agenda said that they were going to vote on a proclamation to create a self-funded insurance policy program to cover the bonds. And the minutes reflect that they voted on this, and there is a proclamation, but during the course of the meeting, it never happened. And of course, the just all kinds of stuff through the clerk. They're using these clerks that aren't the normal clerks, or confidential clerks. It's like there's a deep state. There's a deep state right here in Tuolumne County. It's like, whoa, who are these clerks? Why are they confidential? And they got caught doing that. And nobody does anything. You can report that to the local district attorney can't do anything. The state attorney general, they're not going to do anything because the corporation, right? Tuolumne County is a subsidiary of the state of California, which is a subsidiary of the United States that we just talked about, based out of Washington, D.C., which is a foreign country. So, boom, it's mind-boggling. I already had a little bit of information on this and started connecting the dots. Is it true? And then, well, what do we do from here? And it just didn't stop because we just being in this thing and networking with other people, and I started websites and things like that. So Facebook and YouTube and put videos out. So a lot of people know who I am. I don't know who all these people are that know me because I'm on the internet. But it wound up shutting down the Facebook site, and that was Tuolumne County Scandals. But what I did is we found out that the California Constitution was repealed in 1960 on a
Article 22.
Yeah, it's Article 22, Section 12, which is called the Enabling Act. So every law has a enabling clause, right? So it takes effect, when they pass it, it's going to take effect January 1st, 2025, or the Constitution of California from 1879 took effect on, I can't remember the date, but whatever that date was, that clause was stricken when they did a amendment for a proposition. And I thought maybe it was inadvertently, and then there's a debate whether they did it intentionally on the down low so nobody knows about it, to a corporation. So, because we're all thinking that we have a government, right? But it's a for-profit company. And we know that, and it's, okay, so that all made sense. And therefore, this whole thing, it's mind-boggling because there's nothing to even be a de facto. So either you're a de jure, you're elected and you're a legitimate government, or you're holding the spot of that, to which you're not elected, kind of like our president. I don't want to. But and not only that, Joe Biden, they haven't taken their oath. Along the way, that was the other thing, the oath of office that they're all taking isn't the oath in the California Constitution. So our California governor and our local board of supervisors, they are taking the loyalty clause, which is under Article 26, Section 3. So it's like a show. They do the oath, they're not loyal to it. And the reason for that is because of the Communist Party back during McCarthyism in the late 50s, early 60s.
1967.
It was the late 60s. The Communist Party out of Berkeley, the teachers and all that, sued because they can't take the oath and then it would automatically be treason, right? Because they were a member of the Communist Party. And so they had to accommodate that. But now we have a communist, government. I mean, I would call it more fascist, really. It's more fascist than communist. But these are the things I'm finding out. It's just kind of a normal guy, right? Just normal person like everyone else here. That you got a traffic ticket, and somebody else. These things open the door. Like Alex Jones has his story. And, usually a traffic ticket started somebody. And you go down these rabbit holes, and I'm in court right now trying to get this thing resolved, and just finding out other solutions. Using, I guess you could call it common law, but it's just their own code, so it's not even really common law, because the further you get into this stuff, you realize that everything is a financial transaction, including criminal law. Like basically you could actually pay that bill, and everybody that's in prison is there voluntarily. It's all commerce. Like you were told earlier about the artificial person, your name in all capital letters, right? Your straw man. So people refer that as to the straw man, because we have we're the flesh and blood, person, people. You gotta always double check your words. I always say understand. Now there's a new term called overstand. Oh, I overstand. It's a play on words, but because if you understand, then you stand under it. Anyways, so I've just discovered all kinds of stuff, and I'm working, and we're forming this coalition organization. I kind of describe it as a patriotic version of the ACLU, I guess, right? And it's kind of like a rock band, I guess. Dave's managing us. We're all kind of our own people, but we're all definitely on the same path. We all realize, wow, it's not just me, and the things that just keep on happening and falling out of the sky are profound miracles. I'll tell you that, that just keep on, like the thing that I just explained about the California Constitution. Nobody knows that. You can't go on the internet. It's not out there. All these other things are out there. It's been 20 years that I've been studying common law and hearing people speak about this stuff, like Jordan Maxwell and many others. There's many people out there that are legends, including Tony. Tony's pretty legendary. So it's an honor to be a part of this and make some change. Because right here in Tuolumne County, I see Tuolumne County. Since I'm from here, it's small enough, and we have enough people right here. I think it could be ground zero for the revolution. It's not a revolution; it's a restoration. Because all we're doing is taking the Constitution of California and restoring it, because the Republic of California is wide open, right? So it's vacant. So we don't need to have a revolution. We're just going to reoccupy the Republic. Currently, I was living downtown, right underneath the Dome building, which is an old school. It was built to be a school. There was some debate whether it was going to be a capital. It's sitting vacant. I'm like, well, we could just. I actually got into asking the Arts Commission, because they own that, and I said, well, I'm an artist, because I was putting out my YouTube videos exposing all the corruption, getting thousands of hits. A lot of people watch those videos from Tuolumne County. If you get 3,000 hits, that's going viral for Tuolumne County, in my opinion. So I could start my art studio up there and have sort of a constitutional place where people can come and, kind of a think tank or I don't know, what would you call that? Just a place that's a studio. I got my thing there, and people can come in. It's a think tank. I don't know, an office. The new Capitol is one. And so yeah, there's a couple other things that are going on. People might have heard of tactical civics. Has anybody heard of tactical civics out there? Or what about New California, the new state of California? So these things are all things that intrigue me, but really good. But they're still a part of that corporation, right? So if you have the 51st state, well, that's not the republic, right? So I think we're right over the target right now. I know how they're coming at me, trying to shut me up, and they banned me from speaking at the board meetings. They got their protective orders against me. So. And they won't even let me zoom in. They're trying to zoom down for everybody, which is crazy because other people are complaining about that. We'll just keep on fighting and taking it to the next level using these new techniques. The monstrous coordination. I got a thing called a quo warranto. Now listen to this, they wouldn't even allow me to file it in the state courts, which is fine because the state courts, they don't even exist. So what I was saying earlier, de facto, de jure, you can't be a de facto if there's not even an office to hold, right? Doesn't exist. So I don't know if any of that made sense to everybody. You're drinking water out of a fire hose here, but at the same time, we're changing the world here, right here in Sonora County. It's happening at the perfect time before I think the wheels fall off the country. I mean, we just had Trump get indicted. This is tyranny.
Don't forget about the other boy's not bonded. That's why he resigned.
Boy, I can sit here and tell stories, and boy, we go all down all the different things that happened with Bill Pulley. I reported child pedophilia here in the courts. It's a mandatory investigation, totally covered up. That's right, when Bill Pulley announced he's retiring. That was right around the same time. All these things were happening, and then it would become on national news in some part of the country. Remember that? Every time something would happen to be within a day or two, another sheriff would be resigning from his post because of the same kind of a situation. And so, yeah, that was Philippe Pimentel, if anyone knows who that person was. He was a former commissioner, family law commissioner in Tuolumne County. He'd been here for some time.
About 15 years.
He'd been here for, and 15 years. And he did not have, he's not a judge, and he needed to have a current active state bar license, which he didn't have. So he's not taking the training, he's not bonded, insured, nothing. So he wound up being, fired or removed. But you never heard about that. Everything's covered up because anybody that had a case with him, those cases are subject to being reopened. And along with every other case, once this stuff comes out about the Constitution, that, it would seem to me that anybody that had an adverse judgment or criminal conviction maybe could, petition to have their cases reopened. Yeah, Philippe Pimentel. So he was the former commissioner, so he's been replaced. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah. Ty did uncover a bunch of inappropriate conflicts of interest, right? But anyway.
Yeah, that was just I could go off.
Yeah, no. But anyways, yeah. So one thing is fear of retaliation. And out of all the federal lawsuits, I've done 20 of them. No one has ever had to pay attorney fees if they didn't prevail. And so every time you stand up, you're winning because you're calling them on the carpet. And we can use this lawfare to keep our public servants in check until we can restore the republic. And so what David's going to share is land patents. And if we cut into the question and answer time, we should be able to answer everybody's question because Ty is he's a law guru, and we have Tony, myself, and David. We'll all be fielding questions. for the final phase. So I'm gonna turn it over to David and take the time.
Thank you, sir. Can everybody hear me clearly? Can you give me some more cord? Thank God I'm short because I don't require as much cord as everybody else. Oh, okay. Better? I'm not even sure. Can speak directly? Okay. Okay. Why are we here? We are here, well, obviously most of us will. In fact, we've all immigrated here. But initially, the boys left England because they wanted freedom of religion, and they knew that freedom as well included the opportunity to own your land. Because in England, we went to public schools, but back in my day, they taught us that the king owned all the lands. It was a feudal system. And so if you go back into my packet of documents, there's a definition here from I believe it's from the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, which is the first dictionary. It talks about the feudal system. I'm not going to read it in the essence of saving time. But basically, the king owned all the land. You had landlords, and if the king got mad at you, if you didn't let him mess with your daughter or whatever, he would kick you off the land. All right. So when the boys came over here, they said that we are going to own the land. So when we won the Revolutionary War, theoretically, that we took the king's position, so we own the land. And that's confirmed in the Constitution. I showed you earlier, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 says that the federal government can only own land for Washington, D.C., which is a foreign country. It's not in the United States. It's a foreign country. And likewise can own land or buy land. They don't take it. They have to buy land from forts, magazines, naval yards, arsenals, and needful buildings. That's all the land they could own. And that's purposeful because they wanted the people to own the land. So in treaty, all the land in the country is taken by treaty. And we meet England and so on and so forth. So being that they couldn't own land, the government had to dispose of the land. And that's in the Constitution. It's Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 says that Congress has the right to dispose of and control the territories. And that started back in 1780. You go to the next document there. It's the resolution of 1780. The boys being the 13 colonists said, what are we going to do with all this territory to the west? Well, what we will do is we will authorize the federal government to be in charge of the territories. So that's why we had the territorial marshal, right? When we watched the westerns back in the day. So they were in charge of that. And then when the states were established, at that point, the federal government relinquishes all jurisdiction. The jurisdiction goes to the state, and the land goes to the people. That's the resolution there. So in the earlier point, I talked about the Article 1, Section 8, or Section 10 rather, which to me is the most powerful of the clauses in the Constitution, one of them. But it reads in there, let's see which one I mean. Okay, the one on the lower hand here, on the left hand lower, it reads, no state shall pass any law impairing the obligation of contract. Do you realize how powerful that is? If you and I have a private contract, the state shall make no law. None, zero. The health department can't walk into your restaurant and say anything if it's a PMA, private PMA.
Private membership association.
Yeah, he said it. So that's a contract between you and the people that walk into your gym or your restaurant or whatever. So no law applies to that. That's the power of knowing your rights. So being that the state shall make no law impairing contract, the United States couldn't own land, they had to sell it. And they sold it. This next document is a land patent. It's a letter patent. And that reads basically that the United States of America, right? The United States of America, not the United States Incorporated, sold the land. You just fill in the blank with your name. Then there's a lawful land description, which is meets bounds, surveyed information, and to his heirs and assigns forever Forever's not up yet. This is a contract, it can't be broken. The significance of that the water goes with it. So when they wanted the state or the counties or whatever want to try to control your water, they can't. Because this contract exists, it's forever. It's recorded in every county that the land is in, obviously. So the importance of that is that this contract is forever. You claim it. Right now it's sitting out there, but does anybody know about land patent contracts? Not very many do. I've run across very few. But the bottom line is it's out there. You go claim it, and then you have colloidal ownership of the land. Not you're renting. Right now you were renting since I think in the late 20s they stopped using the land patent and they went into a title company, and then you own your land, or you rent your land from the county through the authorization of the title company, and it's recorded at the county. So you have the legal right, not lawful. You have the legal right to stay on the land that you are renting via taxes and so on and so forth. Let's see. This basically just explains grant, gives, livery, some other information that you will read on the land patent. It's not really important. But what is interesting is the government doesn't want you to know your rights. And so if you go to the next, this is a page out of the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, and it has alloidial and alloidial. All right, alloidial. Alloidial.
Well, yeah, I can explain.
Pertaining to alloidium, freehold, free of rent or service, i.e. no taxes, held independent of a lord, i.e. the government, paramount, opposed to feudal. Okay, that says it all. You claim this, you own your land, nobody can tax it, nobody can lien it. You just need to collect it. Yes?
I can explain how they can do that.
How they can claim it?
Get an allodial title.
Well, that could be the question and answer, I guess. I want to get through this, then we can get to the questions and answers. So this is the next page you see here is the Act for the Admission of California into the Union. And you can see in section 3 there, they have, I have highlighted in section 1, and admitted into the Union on an equal footing with the original states in all respect whatsoever. Okay, this was the contract that we offered the United States to become another state in the United States. So everybody says, well, we have all this public land in the West. Well, yeah, you do. Why? Because you didn't get up off your seat and stand. You didn't get off your donkey. That's right. We got to get off our donkey and you claim this stuff. So when they say that we own this land, you look them in the face and you punch them in the chest, and then you tell them, you don't own this land. I own this land. I have a contract. That contract is forever. Get off my land. That's what we have to do, people. I get emotional. Can you tell? And you know why I'm getting emotional? Because I've been doing this for 20 years. 20 years. I have gained one compadre in Chuck. He's the only state national. Well, I know of several other, but out of the thousands of people I've spoken to, you know how many have stood up? I take my shoes off, but I didn't wash my feet this morning. So yeah, about 10 or 15, that's it. So that's why it's so emotional. People, time is running out. Time is running out. Do you comprehend that? You must stand. If you don't, you will fall. As Benjamin Franklin said at the Constitutional Convention, right? He said that if we, gentlemen, we are at a great peril here, and if we do not hang together, we certainly will hang separately. All right, so we need to collaborate. So anyway, it goes on, this contract that we offer in the United States, it says in section 3, and be it further enacted, that the said state of California is admitted into the Union upon the express condition that the people of the said state, through their legislature or otherwise, shall never interfere with the primary disposal of the public lands within its limits, and shall pass no law and do no act whereby the title of the United States to and the right to dispose of the same shall be impaired or questioned, right? Impaired or questioned. That comes back to the 10th, to section 10, clause 1. State shall make no law to impair the contract. And then, let's see, finally it reads, and that they shall never lay any tax on or assessment of any description whatsoever upon the public domain. How many of you pay your property taxes twice a year? Right, this contract is the original contract from the 1848. Don't pay your taxes, you don't have to. Stand and look at it and say this. Oh, by the way, they can't commingle public funds with private funds. So whom do you write your tax check to? You don't write it to the Stanislaus County government or Tuolumne County government, do you? You write it to Mr. James, the taxes collector. Why? Because then that's a voluntary action. You volunteer to give them your money, your rent, and then he gives it. He has a contract with his boss, the corporation, and he gives the money to the corporation. So there's separation there. They do everything under deception. That's why when they foreclose on the land, where do they have the public sale? On the courthouse steps. Why do they do it on the steps? Because it's an unlawful action, and if they did it in the court, then the government would be responsible. But if they do it outside the building, it has the perception that it's lawful, but it ain't. That's why Benjamin Franklin says, if you don't know your rights, you have none. I have a few more rights, that is. Okay, so in short, this document here, if you read this, it gives a good description on land patents and how strong they are. And in the next one here is the Summa Corporation. Now this is powerful. This was in 1984. The Summa Corporation owned land along the coast, and they were challenged by the state and I believe the city of Los Angeles. So Los Angeles wanted to use their beachfront land to have people walk across it and enjoy the ocean. Well, the Summa Corporation says, no, you can't do that. We own that land. It's private. And they said, well, we're going to do it anyway. And I actually talked to the attorney that fought this case, and she stumbled upon land patent, so they used the land patent. And the Supreme Court says, well, I'm looking at this contract, and it's forever, and I do not see an easement for the state of California to use your land. So I guess what? You can't use the land because the contract says you have no easement. And that was challenging the California Constitution. That's the power of this. It stands, it's the highest title. And just briefly here, you see these little squares here? Because I said a lawful description. If you will look at your land, it's going to say assessor's parcel number, 3 digits, dash, 3 digits, dash, 3 digits, dash, 3 more digits. That is the corporate identification of the land that you rent from them. That's why they call it the assessor's number. Words mean things. Now, if I said this was David's David's land, then I would own it, right? But they tell you that it's the assessor's land / the county's land. You're just renting it. Everything is in front of you. Government, everything is deceit and lies. So, to own your land, you must claim it via lawful description. Lawful descriptions are metes and bounds. Everything starts with a township and a range. In our particular area, Mount Diablo is 00. If you go to the west in Utah, their main church, what they call it? Not a synagogue. Anyway, in Salt Lake City, the church is 00 there, for obvious reasons. They're Mormon. And So everything north is the township north. Everything south of Center Point, Mount Diablo is south, and then the ranges go east and west. Townships go north and south. So that's the description. And then each township is 36 miles square. So there's 36 sections, and each section is a mile by a mile. And then you see how they have them broken down. It's kind of an unusual numbering system, but that's how they can identify basically this spot of land right here in this church using this system. Then to find out where your land patent is, you need to get an assessor's map because it'll give you the location. And it'll tell you what township range, et cetera, it's in. Then you go to a United States geological map, and this happens to be a 7.5 minute 1 to 24,000 scale. In 7.5 minutes, the width of this map is the width that it takes the Earth to rotate 7.5 minutes. Kind of cool. Anyway, then you can locate. I have highlighted on this one. This is just a small section of the total map. The total map's usually 2 feet by 3 foot. But I have highlighted in the section numbers, and then you can locate your land on those numbers. And then once you've located that, then you go onto the Bureau of Land Management's website, and you can look under land patents and you can research your data. And what I've included here is a plat map. It's called a plat map. This happens to be a section, or excuse me, one township, and it's township 3 south. So that means it's 3 times 36, or 3 times 6 would be 36 miles south of the center point of Mount Diablo, and it's range 9 east, so it's 9 times 6 to the east of Mount Diablo, and that's that township. And then the sections are listed there, and then you can locate where your land is. And most parcels were sold in 180 acres or 360. The 360 is a full section, and then you have the quarters, whatnot. But anyway, each one of those little black lines with a number, it represents the land patent that was sold, and that's forever. So you find your land, and you simply say, okay, well, my land patent is in section whatever here, and I can't read it because my glasses aren't strong enough. But then you pick the number out, and you call the land patent for $1.75 a page, and he will send you certified copies of the land patent. And once you have it in your hand, then you simply notify the public via hanging it up in a fire station, a library, the county seat, publish it in the newspaper, and you just let everybody know, hey, I'm claiming my land patent, and so I know I am a loyal title, and I have taken the king's position, and now get out of my face. And it's a little more complicated than that, but it's not much more complicated than that. And we do that. There's a lot of things that we do that we can't do. We're going to do coordination, right? These are the things that the ACLG, America's Constitutional Law Group, has been established, and this is what we're going to do. We are going to help the people stand. So that's why I'm up here. No other reason. I know I'm handsome, but you don't have to admit that. Okay, I think we're going to go do the questions and answers.
Let's, we're just going to do questions and answers for that.
I don't care.
Okay, let's get the experts up here. We're doing a panel. Yeah, I'm surprised we got through that quick. And that's the real deal. You gotta claim your inheritance, right? And so we're not gonna let them pull a Jacob on us, right? And steal our birthright. This microphone, my apologies, my equipment. We need donations here. The remonstrance, we stopped that. There's lots of things that I don't have time to share, a lot of great victories for standing up. And I've been doing this like on no budget at all. And Virginia has been gracious. She's been helping out. She stood up to her city and forced them to come over there and deal with the problem. It's bad enough you want to be left alone, but if somebody calls you with a problem, now you have an injured party. And what it is it's like the good old boy situation. And I'm so proud of her standing up for herself because these people work for us, and you've been paying more taxes in Oakdale than anybody else over the years, and we're going to get you a land patent on your property, right? Because, like I said, this is all educational, and then you just move forward. But if you try to do this alone, it's hard. That's why we do what we do. And so, if you're gonna ask a question, maybe you can come up to the mic. Can we get that other microphone going faster?
Yeah, I actually have one on microphone. That's yours.
Okay. Or I can just hold the mic and have them ask the question, and then we'll pass it around for the answer. So Ty can come up here too. And you know what? We might not all have the same answers. And that's why you guys need to validate and verify.
This should work.
Oh, great. Okay. So if you want to come up and ask any question that pertains to our liberties, freedoms, government, we'll do our best to answer. And like I said, you validate and verify everything. And I believe that there's been a lot of all truth, fact, evidence, and law spoken here today. It's just what was our positions and what battles God told us to fight. So who wants the first question?
You have to be bonded to hold public office.
We got Don. Oh, by the way, is anybody familiar with the John Birch Society? They've been around. They're the ones originally fighting communism in this country right now. They got what's the magazine, The New American? Don? And can I give you an advertisement? When do you guys meet?
Third Tuesday of the month.
Third Tuesday of the month here, right?
6:30.
Okay, 6:30, the third Tuesday. Get involved. Join a Liberty group. Anyways, so you got a question, Don?
Yeah, I do. So I don't understand how you get a land gap. I understand we just talked about it. Is there a process to
Land title? How do you get it?
Yeah,
I'll use this one. It's right
how
back.
do you-
You want me to answer it? I can answer it.
Yeah, you.
Then I'll elaborate.
Yeah, Anthony has some information I didn't know, the Suma Corporation. Am I,
You gotta turn on, I turned it off.
is that better? Oh, yeah. This man has a wealth of information, he's been around. And apparently the Suma Corporation was owned by Howard Hughes, did you say? Yeah, which is a point of interest. But yes, there's a process. The land patent exists. My particular land patent, I live in Oakdale. When the United States beat Mexico, then there was a Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Not sure that I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that was signed in 1848. Now, the significance of that is that is recorded. In fact, it's record number 1 in Stanislaus County Records Office. And that land patent was 35,800 plus acres. And it was Fernando Thompson, I believe, owned that land. But on that contract, land patent, it states that Fernando Thompson, his heirs and his signs forever have a loyal title to that land. And the land cannot be sold. It has to be assigned. Now, if you think your land is worth $1 million because it's whatever, you can assign the land to your heir or an assign is buying it. And you can sell the outhouse for $10 million because it's a private contract. What you and I agree on is fine because I can't sell the land because it's a loyal title. It can be assigned. So at that moment, when Ulysses S. Grant signed that contract, land patent, I already own that land because I am an assigned. And there are 500 generations, hopefully, down the line that are also on that same contract as an assigned. And so it's simply, I explained to you, you just need to find it. It is recorded at the Bureau of Land Management, which used to be called the Land Office, right? It's recorded there. And all you got to do is tell them, I want a certified copy of it. I suggest you get 3. And they will send you the certified copy, and it's actually riveted together because you do not want to tear it apart because that is a lawful document. So then you just simply post that, and you have to have a description. Now, obviously, I don't own 35,000 acres, I own 5. So my description, land description, starts out that I, David Avila, have a part and parcel of land patent number 5/8/1848. Personally, it's a PLC, it's a private land contract. Because when when we took the land or bought the land from Mexico, the Mexicans already were obviously there. And so land patents, there are, I believe, 12 land patents. And each of them are an act of Congress. And so Congress passed a law saying that if you are a Mexican landowner in the territories that we, the United States, bought from Mexico, you will have 1 year to claim that land. And so then they filed with the land office, and once it was verified, then it was registered and they were lawfully granted that land. And you simply have to get a copy of the land patent, a certified copy. You need to go to the county and get a certified copy from them. Now the real work is that you have to have a chain of title, because I'm going to sign, but I have to approve that I'm going to sign. So there was a guy, Fernando, he sold to somebody, sold to somebody, sold. So you have to create that chain of title to prove that in fact you are an heir, or excuse me, or an assigned, whichever. And then once you prove that, you just simply post it for 60 days, and then you go down to the county and record it. That's it. And the nice part about it is I talked to you about in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, that says no state shall interfere with the obligation of contract. So after 1848, just like the Summa Corporation, if there is not an easement or whatever, nothing applies to the land since 1848. So what about zoning? That same section, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, that says the state shall make no ex post facto law. Ex post facto, past the fact. So when did they start using zoning in California, whatever, say 20 years ago, it doesn't matter. Well, 20 years is after my date that I have this, and I don't see anything on there that says that I'm going to agree to have my land zoned as A40. So guess what? I don't care about your SMU codes and statutes, because they don't count to me, because I own this land illegally, unless I agree that I do not want to drill a well, or I do not want to build a house on this land. You can't tell me what to do. Unless you want to buy it, then you can do whatever you want. But less than that, get off your donkey.
A good way to tie that all together.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So put it through the old bought the land, you built it out yourself, and you did follow all those codes we had.
I'm not sure you understand the
She
question.
built the house there was no house there before.
Built the house yourself, you followed all the required codes yourself, then what happens then? Did you have?
Oh, you can volunteer. You can volunteer to do anything you want. Like I said, I choose to operate under God's jurisdiction. And if you want to get a permit to build your house, what is a permit? It's permission to build. Oh.
Okay, I already own the land, I built a house on that land, which is day by day, and I followed all the codes.
Oh, I understand, yeah.
So, okay, so how do I go back to the past? How do I go back about saying, I want to do this?
Well, you have possession. Possession is 99%. So if you don't get permission from the corporation to build your house, it doesn't matter. Because in real law, I don't have to ask permission to do something that's a right. I have the right to build a home to live in. I have the right to go to work. I have the right to travel. I can choose to ask them permission. Can I build a house on my land? And then they say, sure, but we want 40 grand to give you the authority or to say yes. Now the real challenge is they've got it connected. Now if you build a house up there and you want power, oh geez. The power companies may say, well, we need a permit to hook up the power. So that's why we have to start standing, because technically Stanislaus County, if I go to get a permit to build my house, then they give me the permission, then the power company will hook up, we can do that, we'll allow you to do this. But they're a corporation. Now, if I want a hamburger, I can go to McDonald's, or I can choose to go to Burger King. So being that they're a corporation and they are not government, right, and they are not government, I'm going to establish a permitting division in the private. And then I will force
the power company to hook up to you. I don't need to go to Stanislaus County because they are liars and being deceitful. They don't tell you that. I really can't require you to have power, and I really can't require you to get permission from me to do it, but I do it because you're stupid. You haven't got up off your, got up on your feet off of your donkey. So yeah, that's why we must learn the law, the constitutional law, and that's why we must stand. Because if we stand, we have power.
And you can invoke your land patent and start the process at any time you like. Yeah, and so you know where to find it. And Tony might have a comment.
I just want in another life, I did a allodial title. I was buying some commercial property in another state. And I had to hire an attorney. And he had to research. It took him about, I want to say 6-7 months. But he had to show the chain from the Spanish land grant down through history that I was the last person that was in possession of the property. That's an allodial title. Proof that you go back, as he said, to the first one. And a little side note on that Hidalgo Treaty, the reason Howard Hughes won that lawsuit was that the treaty also said that the state didn't have the right to do that. And that's when Howard Hughes, the attorney, said, hey, as we say in Italian,
Next question.
I got one that's about mineral rights. Like, there's a spot where you go prospecting. I'm not supposed to. This is no trespassing state. Don't I have the right to go down there for my own mineral rights and just get to that land, just go without getting arrested?
Did you hear that one, Tony?
no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want you to comment on this.
I guess this one's about mineral rights, all right? There's all along, I just moved back here, wasn't like that before, but all along like Woods Creek and stuff, it has no trespassing. And I'm allowed to go down there and have mineral rights on that land. And I can go through that land without getting harassed and go down there and prospect. Or even dredge.
Okay, the state of California has SMART, their mining statutes. In 1872, when the Constitutional Congress granted the rights to the miners, it was absolute. It's a congressional mandate before the states ever had any rights. So you have that right as a miner under the 1872 law. They'll tell you you don't. So you got to figure out how you're going to stand up to it. You need to get some miners. You need to form a district, a miners district. Elect your own officials, a sheriff, a judge, and a court. And then you tell the state, go something in.
Do you have any comments for that?
No. Mineral rights is a little out of my forte.
You have any comments on that? You had a question, Dennis? Get a little close to the mic. I have to hold this.
You guys speak about rights, right? The difference between, I want a little clarity about the difference between under our Constitution, that we are a people, right, under God, or I mean, like what's real of a human being, right, a real human right, versus today, since civil rights, as I was looking through that modern, present history, and why the country's thinking people have been fed, okay, I got civil rights, I got human rights, I got all these different rights, now I got gender rights, now I get all these different rights, right? And so is that's the falsality that we've been the media and all that stuff you guys talked about, that whole section? Is that what they do to us, the people, that they dumb us down to think we have these different rights, but it's been what's the word called? It's been enslaved to people think they have a right, but they don't have rights. It's like they're just, enslaved. Versus you guys open the floodgates. Wait a minute. Our true rights is under the Constitution as a real person. Okay. What's the difference? I mean,
Okay, you're right on. And the difference is we're under a dual jurisdiction. Right now, way back when the federal corporation was formed, we the people back then owned it. Over time, our Constitution that guarantees us our rights by telling the government what they can't do has been overridden by the progressive movement and establishing a jurisdiction, giving the authority, the dual jurisdiction, giving one of those jurisdictions to Washington, D.C., the United States, quote unquote. They are ruling or controlling us right now and stopping those rights you talked about. Does that make it clear?
okay, yeah, so that means for us to wake up and say, like, if I can't come and tell I got these certain rights, but if I stop and learn, wait a minute, I got my constitutional rights.
You do, yes,
Hey,
but
stand on that.
but you're under a dual jurisdiction. Yeah, you can stand under.
No, not this other thing that you're saying. There's other jurisdiction.
But because you don't have control in that, if you're standing in your constitutional rights, you are being controlled by the other jurisdiction, so you can't assert your rights.
May I expound on that?
Yeah, sure. That's okay with
Yeah,
What do you mean you can't assert your rights?
See, it's right here. Can you do this? Can you do this? The difference between being free under God's law versus being a slave, what I call as a free range slave. Back in the day, the 1800s, as a slave, this not working? Back in the day, in the slave days, 1800s, you were a slave, you knew it, but you got free rent, right? You got a place to live, you got clothing, you just had to work. You did have to ask permission from the massa. But today, we are still slaves, but we have to, I call ourselves free range slaves because we have to buy our own houses, we have to buy our own food, we have to buy our own clothing, provide our own transportation. So we are free slaves, free range slaves. So, as I was saying, the difference between a people and a person is here. So you now know that we have no government. We have no government. They have all corporations. I gave you a document showing that the Dun & Bradstreet, the corporate numbers. So they are not government. So they say they're government. What are they doing? Remember, lies and deceit. Okay? So they are not government. All you got to do is tell them, you're not government. I can choose, for instance, the difference between traveling and driving. Okay? I can travel. I don't have to ask anybody permission to get in my car and come to church or go to the grocery store or go to see mom. But driving, in fact, is a privilege because they've defined it as that. And I'm okay with that. I want to know that a man who's driving a bus, taking my child to school, has been instructed. So we can do that. I don't particularly like a license, but I like maybe a statement of a certificate of competence. I like that better because a license means you got to come to me. I just want to know that he's competent. So that's under corporate law. So I can operate under corporate law. I need to know when. But if they want to drag me to court, I ain't going under their conditions. I'm going under my conditions where they have no authority. And in law, if I challenge their jurisdiction, they have no jurisdiction. And I suggest we walk out of here today because there is no jurisdiction, because you're attacking my straw man / estate with a serial number, which is not alive, it's dead, it's a corporation you established. I understand that you control that, but I choose not to take that position today.
Yeah.
Is that kind of clear?
Yeah, that's the real person.
Yeah, this is the real person, the estate. Yeah, this is the estate that the government set up.
Well, really, the people under God versus this is just
It's a fiction.
Yeah, and they've taught us and trained us to act under the fiction.
Clarify that. He's got a comment.
I was just, your rights come from God, not the Constitution is protected. That's correct. So when people say Constitution, right? The Constitution that gives it, that's what protects you, because your rights are from God, whatever that means. You are not going to be right. You're going to higher power, right? So it's always my question is, can an atheist have constitutional rights?
Yeah, so we have rights from God, and the contract that we the people set up the federal government with, that contract is simply guarantees our rights that we already have. And if you read the Ninth Amendment, which is not talked about much, the Ninth Amendment reads that basically, I don't care what the Constitution says, I have every right under God as I had before we established this contract. But they realized that they needed some form of government for society. But it was limited power. And we just have to stay. You have limited power, buddy. Read Article 1, Section 8. It has 18 enumerated powers. Don't step out of those powers.
You just used the word government. Now there's a word you're using a lot called governance, because government, all these things like your water board and these things that they're doing, they're not elected. So it's government. All these buzzwords that they're using.
Yeah, they're MCs. They're municipal corporations. So when we say, I say government, that's because most people comprehend what a government is. But in reality, it's an MC, it's a municipal corporation, it has nothing to do with government. So once you know that, and you get that between your ears, they have no more power over you. Because you have power over them. We established them. They do what we asked them to do. Like Tony always says, you just simply need to go and say, hey, you know what? I personally don't mind tearing out the dams, because then we turn the rivers back to natural. And then that'll get all the environmentalists behind us. Oh, let's tear out the dams. But let's build reservoirs next to the river, out of the dam, out of the stream of the river, and then we can store all the water we need to do, and we can put generating plants below those and generate power, but then we're going to restore the rivers. I'm for that, right? But we're going to tell, so for instance, right now, California is in the process of taking all your groundwater away. If in the next 6 years, So 10 days beforehand, you answer every one of those, and the negative, you must rebut that. And when they get that, they're gonna open up and say, oh, we have no jurisdiction on this guy. Done. Okay?
I'd like to interject. So I had a similar situation. An Oakdale officer pulled me over, and they were doing some kind of rigmarole here. They were trying to do a new thing for generating revenue. City of Oakdale was going to write their own tickets and then give you a chance to negotiate, so you don't have to go to Stanislaus Court. So he wanted me to sign the contract, the ticket, and I says, no, I'm going to pass on that. He goes, if you do, then I'm going to arrest you. I says, okay, give me the contract. So I wrote on the contract, under fear of threat and duress and coercion. And I handed it back to him. He goes, what's this? I says, you just got to tell me you were going to arrest me. So, and that's why you sign everything UCC 1-308. I'm not waiving my rights. You're telling me you're going to arrest me and force me into this secret jurisdiction. And so he ripped that up and goes, well, I'm going to give you a regular ticket, or please do so. So he ripped it up, gave me one for the Stanislaus traffic court over there, and I went over there and beat it. I like David's version better because you just mail it back to them, because you're just using contract law. And a lot of times they'll bluff you. We can give you the facts of the law, and it's like, this isn't legal advice. This is all educational information. But you can do the right thing and still get arrested, like Mr. Rockwell, who was here earlier. Going back, it all depends on who the judge is, and there isn't a cookie cutter situation. I've had horrible paperwork in one cases, and I've had brilliant paperwork and lost them. So I usually don't, me personally, Tony might have a comment. There's so many other battles to fight. And like I said, when I went to travel, they're like, your traveler's license expired for 7 years. I could have got into it, well, I'm not driving, I'm flying. I just basically said I'm exercising my right to travel. What he should have done was record. Did he record? Okay, so we need to record, and that's important with any public official. So one guy came up, a building inspector, I think this was the FBI. They come up, knock on the door, and the guy was recording them. He goes, excuse me, sir, how long have you been trespassing on my property? Oh, about 5 minutes. So we need to record them, and like I said, there isn't no cookie cutter information, but I like what David was saying, because I've done that too, and we've had judges just dismiss it in the interest of justice. They don't want a federal civil rights lawsuit, like Dave cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and my sister's the same thing in her case. When she sued Union Township, she gets pulled over. Same thing with David. It's cost-benefit analysis. So if you've sued them in federal court already, it's a big price to pay. You can get on a do not detain list, but like I said, they were trying to throw me in jail for my traffic ticket, which was, an administrative process. So they could technically, you could do all the right things, and they could come to you and arrest your son and put him in cuffs and haul him off. And then you're sitting there tied up in litigation. And like when I first got into this, I fought over every blade of grass. People were like, just pay your taxes, just pay your ticket, blah, 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 blah. And now it's just, I weigh what my time is. And if he wants to learn how to fight, you need to know the risks of, first of all, your own safety. I wouldn't be doing this in Stockton, California. You got to know where you're at, right? And so if it's a young rookie officer, that's a recipe for disaster. And so if you're by yourself, do the Facebook Live, but it's a business report, and you write that at the 45-degree angle or refuse your offer of contract, or under duress, fear of threat, and coercion. And then you can file a declaration by mail in California, your traffic ticket, saying you don't have jurisdiction with an affidavit, like we talked about writing the affidavit. And you can send a lawful notification letter to the prosecutor saying, if you're prosecuting this case, I'm going to sue you in federal court. Which, it's just So you're gonna weigh your time. I mean, for me, I sued a judge over a traffic ticket, right? They hauled me out of the courtroom. I was trying to get arrested, but I didn't. I tried to get arrested so many times. But when you're looking at eyeball to eyeball, they hear bluffs all day long, these officers. So he's tested his rights, which is good. But I just think we should take it on a case-by-case basis. And how much time does he have to burn? So.
So one quick thing, the last time I rode across and sent the ticket back, it was $385. It was the ticket, and I sent it back to them. So were they gonna roll over now? So they sent me another, offered a contract, and this time it says, well, we understand that the $385 probably a little stiff, so if you fill this out, we might give you a reduction in the fee. So I did the same thing, sorry, no jurisdiction, sent it back, never heard from them again. And the other thing, in relationship to the state sent you a letter, again, they didn't send you a letter, they sent the straw man letter. So what you do is you open it up, copy it, and then you put it back in the envelope nicely, and you write a letter. You don't put a return address, you don't sign it, all you say in the letter, you just say, I'm sorry, but this was sent to my address incorrectly. I know there's not enough information here to acknowledge what this is about. I have no clue, so I'm sending it back to you. Thank you very much. So they haven't made a service. It's not due process. And again, you want to send that back to them right away and send it, just register it. Don't send it with the green card back, because you want no tie to you personally. And put gloves on. They would probably fingerprint to make sure you send it. But basically, if you send it back, because that's an offer to contract. Everything is contract with them. Don't sign anything with the government. Never. If you get arrested and they're taking an inventory and they say, here's a list of all the stuff we took from you, I tell them, you sign it. You're the one that took it. You're responsible. You sign it. I'm not signing it. I don't sign anything. I used to. And I don't like electronic because they will use that against you as well. I say, no, I'm not doing electronic. We have paper, and ain't doing this.
So I would like to do a follow-up with this. You guys got our email, you got our information on the syllabus. And we could do customs meetings. If you have a cause of action, we can come and assist you and help you, no matter what they are. Because if there's a problem, there's a solution. And that's why it's nice having a team of people. And you guys should start your own law group out here too. And so we want to network with other organizations and provide support also, like the John Birch Society. They have an excellent magazine out there. They have once a year membership, do great things. So we've all had our level of when we woke up. Mine was 9/11 when I started studying all this stuff. There's people waking up today. So we need to start bringing more people in. Because the way I look at it, I think it's another 10 years to restore the Republic. And that's a lot can happen in 10 years. Look what happened in the last 3.5. So, by the way, Trump isn't moved by any of this stuff. He played it perfectly. Then I looked at those cases, and I just wanted to throw this in because I didn't share that. They could have filed different type of injunctions and writs, like Ty does. They could have skinned that squirrel 12 different ways. They pretended like they fought a little bit, and they let this judge come in there and railroad. There was lots, and Trump was no dummy. And what? They couldn't take the amount of donations and support that's happening. And people like Rockwell and people that stood up, now everybody's waking up. The black community has this group called NIGGAS for Trump. It's like, yeah, that's right. And it's funny because it is about a word right now. And do you know that where they booked him was the same place Martin Luther King got booked in Fulton County Jail in Atlanta? They were sending him a message. And so, like I said, we're not through all this, and we're at war, and every day you see those lines across the sky, we're living in a capital nation, like David said. We are free-range humans. But, you know what? We can determine our destiny, and let's take the pawns off the board. Like in Union Township, you can get on the website, you can read the newspapers, mass resignations. So the whole community started coming together. So we have to find what we have in unity. Like a lot of us in the group, we have different ideas about different stuff. We need to focus on unity like the churches. The churches believe in all who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved, that Jesus Christ came and died for our sins. And we find a couple things that we agree with, because they're trying to get 10 pastors in one room in agreement. We wonder why the left's kicking our tail. Let's quit splitting hairs and find what we have in common, and we can take back locally. Let's be the first county free in California. Let's restore open carry here. Let's restore the republic. But it has to have, you have to have people that are willing to stand. And, the militia people have come. And so let's get educated. Let's stay in touch. Let's support one another. And like I said, if your rights are getting violated, we're going to come in here with full force and remove any of these public officials that they think are their lords, by the way.
Right. And we don't have to conquer the corporations. I don't care if they operate, and I don't care who wants to operate with them. I just choose not to. So we are going to open up the California Republic, which is still viable, still there, still lawful. All we got to do is walk in, turn the lights on, and start operating. And we can do that with 50 people or 100 people. And then we can start our own constitutional private grand jury. And as a grand jury, then we can indict a judge from the corporation and drag him into our lawful courts. All it takes is 100 people. And I don't care if they deal out there. I don't care. Just don't bother me. And then the people will start coming over to our side, and eventually they'll have to close the doors because there's nobody home. By the way, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And listening to us today, too.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Let's see, was that Palestine? That whole land thing made me think about it too. How about all that land in China, Bob? You know, the babies can't just go walk on it, just take it back, start building.